business until noon. Now we can. So we started in the fall.
Congratulations on your son. Job well done.
Graduate? Oh, I didn't know that. Congratulations to you too. Okay, well.
Meeting call to order, please. Please join me in the prayers. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessings and all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me in the allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Counsel Scott.
Here.
Counsel Yem.
Here.
Mayor Chow.
Here.
Counsel Drinkwater.
Here.
Counsel Getchia.
Yep.
Counsel Janess.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Counsel Robinson.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
That's 11 present.
Any memorial this evening? Councilor Murcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Mark Rosengard. He was a graduate of Lowell High School and then attended Burdett College and Nichols College. Mark was the retired treasurer for the city of Lowell. He was very active as financial secretary for the Montefiore Synagogue in Lowell and dedicated many years as chairman of the Montefiore Cemetery in Pelham, New Hampshire. He was a member of Chabad Center of Acton, Temple Emunah of Lexington, and Kong Beth Israel of Andover. Mark was the go-to guy when families needed assistance planning a funeral or visiting a cemetery. Mark was the devoted husband of the late Gail Schwartz Rosengard. We offer our condolences to his family, relatives, and many friends. And I'd also like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Charles A. Maraganis, born and raised in the city of Lowell. In 1967, at the age of 17, and during the Vietnam era, Charlie enlisted in the United States Army. He was attached to the chaplain school at Fort Hamilton, New York, where he served as part of an honor guard for military funerals. He was then stationed at Okinawa, Japan, for 18 months. He was honorably discharged as an F5 sergeant in 1970. Proud of his country, he was a member of the Draken American Legion, Post 315, and the Greek American Legion, Post 1 in Lowell. He received his GED in Okinawa and went on to get his BA from the University of Lowell in 1979, later receiving his master's degree in education in 1987. In 1999, he was shy of receiving his PhD due to illness, multiple myeloma. Charlie was employed as a counselor at the Concord Department of Corrections. He later became a Dracut High School teacher, where he taught social studies and psychology. Here he found his greatest joy, teaching. His sons, Alex and Chris, were his greatest pride as he watched each one prosper in life. Charlie is survived by his loving children, Alex and Chris, his 6 grandsons, his former spouse, Diane, and a special recognition and thanks to his companion, Sharon DuPont, for her many years of love, support, and care that she gave him. We offer our condolences to his family, relatives, and many friends. He will be truly missed. Let us also offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber to all those who have passed since our last council meeting, as well as all the people who died in the war in the Ukraine. May they all rest in peace. Thank you.
Any other memorial? Mr. Clerk, dim the light, please. We now will start with the agenda of 2, Mayor's Business, 2.1, Communication Remote Zoom Participation, motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Drinkwater, second by Councilor Gishia. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's passed. We go to 2.2. This is the presentation. As you know, Juneteenth as next month. We have many great celebrations throughout the city. Tonight, I have a couple organizations that are going to present the event for Juneteenth. Could the Juneteenth flag raising committee please come to the podium and let us all know, invite all of us to your event.
Please indulge me for a moment.
Sure.
Thank you all for allowing us to speak in front of this governing body. We appreciate it. I'm Jacqueline Coles, and this is Bridget Anderson.
Could you put the microphone close to your mouth so we could hear?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
You can hear me now?
perfectly.
On behalf of the Black Lowell Coalition, Just Dream Inc., and the RFBJ chapter of BIG, we invite and hope to see you all at 2 events in celebration of Juneteenth. As I asked before, please indulge me, I have a short backstory. I am a direct descendant of enslaved African Americans. My great-grandmother has close ties to slavery, with my great-great-grandmother having been enslaved. My family was enslaved in Mississippi on my mother's side, Georgia and Mississippi on my father's side. In the aftermath of slavery, my mother's family was marginalized by sharecropping, and my father's family partook in the Great Migration North. The first that I heard of Juneteenth was when I was in college at Grambling State University in Grambling, Louisiana. My first backyard celebration was when I was stationed at Altus Air Force Base in Oklahoma. Altus is not far from Tulsa, where in 1921, American-born terrorism obliterated an entire black town. I share this story with you, knowing that my origins, my heritage, my language, and my food was unidentifiable to me and my family for generations. Yet through DNA conducted by AfricanAncestry.com, I've been able to identify my ancestral roots, and I'm proud to say that my maternal lineage comes from Cameroon, and my paternal lineage comes from Gabon. With this information, I've provided specific ancestral identities to generations in my family. My people of the African diaspora are resilient despite recurring setbacks. We're happy despite so much sadness around us, and we celebrate to remember. It just so happens that this Juneteenth will also be Father's Day, a day to celebrate the values of my people, the values of the family, and the values of having fathers in our lives. Allow me to close before I hand it over to Bridget in saying this. Obtaining freedom was a collective activity. There were Americans of all races that fought with us publicly and privately to secure our freedom. This day celebrates everyone's contribution to the cause. Therefore, I close my portion by inviting you to our 2 events that Bridget will tell you about. If you have not received your invitations, they will be in your inboxes shortly. We are inviting all of these government members here and City Council, our city manager, the department heads, and the schools. I turn it over to Ms. Bridget.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Bridget Anderson Trim, and I'm here just to give you a few more details about the events that we have coming up to celebrate Juneteenth. On June 18th, which is Saturday, we will be having a Juneteenth flag raising, which we will share some history of Juneteenth and some arts to celebrate that day. On the following day, which is Sunday, Juneteenth, we will be having our first annual festival, which is hosted by the Black Lowell Coalition, Just Dream Inc., in the RFBJ chapter of BIG. This event will start at 2 p.m. and will go on until 6 p.m. It will be full of free music, food, fun, and games, and we invite you all out to come enjoy a day of celebration of freedom. And, you know, to also celebrate Father's Day, we invite you all who are fathers and to bring out your family members who are fathers to be celebrated as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Rob Mitchell is on the gala committee. Please come to the podium.
Good afternoon, good evening. Good evening. I'm Jessie Mitchell. The Afro-American Community Collaborative invites you to come out and celebrate the legacy of Juneteenth. Juneteenth honors the end of slavery in the United States and is considered the longest-running African-American holiday. On June 17, 2021, it officially became a federal holiday. Our theme for this Juneteenth event is Perfecting Unity. This theme reminds us that strengthening our unity is a perfect way to remember the past, honor our heritage, and forge a better future.
And my name is Terry Mitchell Morris. So I am here to reintroduce the Afro-American Community Collaborative Incorporated. Our mission is a community-based nonprofit committed to creating opportunities, mobilizing our resources to build healthy, sustainable, and thriving communities. Now, most of you may know us from the Black History Month events. We usually have a Black History Month ball and do the flag raising, but we are reigniting our passion and reestablishing our organization to be more present all year long. So this June, on the 17th, Friday, June 17th, we are hosting, with support from Mayor Chow, our first annual Juneteenth Black Tie Gala, and that will be at Lindsay's in Drake. We're here to invite you to that and gain your support as we continue to seek, inspire, and motivate people to become more actively involved in the communities. We have been planning social events since Black History Month. We did participate in the free basketball clinic over school vacation. We have teen dances and outside of our Black Tie Gala on Friday the 17th, we also have a Juneteenth block party scheduled, and we've been really fortunate that it's after our friends here. So from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., we are having a Juneteenth block party on Sunday the 19th at the newly created UTEX Green Space. Free food, entertainment, and just about anything you can ask for. So please join us all. And again, our flyers should be in your inbox after the meeting. So I just want to say that we our parents and forefathers started the Afro-American Council back in the 60s. First, we had Merrimack Valley Achievement Association, and that was created by Jules Cho. After that, in '83, my parents, Mary and Bob Mitchell, founded Afro-American Council, and they have given us what we call community. We have grown up helping, providing, supporting. They had several of the Black festivals that we used to have 3 days at South Common, and we again have just decided that we need to make our presence known in the community and around the community for more than just Black History Month. So please join us, and if anybody else has anything, just want to say, and it's actually, this is our first annual Black Tie Gala and our third annual Juneteenth Festival that my daughter started with the grassroots and out of her own pocket that we were holding at Old Armory Park. So we're really excited that our community and our committee is growing, and look for your support. Thank you very much.
Well, thank all of you, the Afro-African Council and the committee for including me to be part of the event, and the idea, also the introduction for me to be part of the Black Tie Gala also was introduced by Councillor Robinson, and he's instrumental to supporting this event as well. And all the council members are invited, as well as the entire city, the sponsorship opportunities as well. So now we need a motion to accept and place on file by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Scott. Now I'd like motion to suspend the rule by Councillor Mosier. It is second by Councillor Nguyen. It's my honor to have Eric Lamarche to come speak on honoring and acknowledging the veterans and Memorial Day. But before Mr. Lamarche speak, if I could ask LTC, maybe if you could focus the camera angle on the flags that are placed on the desk as for the next few minutes, that would be great. Mr. Lamarche.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few months ago, I was approached by Mayor Chow and then supported by Councilor Yem on bringing this effort to the city where we could honor the veterans and first responders of our city, those who've given their life and served the community. I just think very happy to see that it's coming together. This year we have 13. You have 9 before you. Now we have 4 police officers that are on the way. The printing, there was a little snafu, but I think this is going to look nice. It's going to be out in front of the police station and that circle of flags. It's a great way to honor all of our heroes, and this is a perfect time for us to start the program. And I just wanted to thank all of you for your support with this program, and we'll be looking to grow this for next year and the future years to come. And I think it worked out very nice that it was an intimate little ceremony over there, so we could have the family see them first. But I think this is good for the city, and just thank you.
Any comments by the councilors? Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Lamarche. I was approached by the Veterans family and the Gold Star family during my campaign, telling me that the city has suspended laying the wreath and American flag for about 20 years, and they asked me to look into bring it back. So I promised that if and when I'm elected, I will honor their request. And as a result, after I was sworn in, my first motion is to bring the laying wreath and American flag at the Gold Star pole and post and square to remember all our veterans in the city of Lowell. And then Mr. Lamarche came about with the idea of Hometown Heroes banners. It costs about $150 to do, and I promised that I will sponsor. So as a result, I was able to sponsor about 4 or 5 banners to honor the veterans and the first responder, including the 4 police officers that you've seen their picture hanging on the wall at the treasurer's office on the first floor. It is my honor to give back because, again, I came from a veterans family too. My father was in the Cambodian army, and his unit was sent to defend the capital, Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and his unit was overrun by the Khmer Rouge, and he presumed dead and missing in action. So it is dear and near to my heart, and I want to also next year to work with Mr. Lamarche, create a committee and everybody invited so that we can have a memorial parade for our veterans, maybe starting from the auditorium and walk toward the and parade to the City Hall. So anyone at home listen and watch, you can also be part of the planning committee that we will organize. That will be no cost to the city because similar to the Winterfest, you know, we have a committee, we have people that underwrite the businesses, so we would be able to underwrite all the expenses. And I appreciate all the support from various veterans group, and hopefully this banner will grow, like Mr. Lamarche said. This year we have 13, and we're gonna grow bigger. And I have spoken with the manager Golden to have it hanged around the City Hall, similar to other city that they did, hanging the banner of to honor the veterans around the City Hall. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Lamarche.
Councilor Gishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Thank you City Councilor Yem. It's not easy for a lot of veterans to do this, and when you ask them, it's not easy to even ask that question. So when I called my father and asked that question, the phone went silent, and I won't share the conversation because it probably wasn't good for TV. But I want to thank you for bestowing this honor upon him, and I'm surprised it's sitting here. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone that made this happen. Again, I think this is a perfect example of residents in the community speaking to elected officials and to members that can help make their ideas and thoughts come to fruition. Councilor Yem, the veterans agent, city administration, and here we are. It's proof that speak up. Feedback comes from all areas, and I think this is a great program to implement, and thank you to everyone that made this possible.
If I could point out that Mr. McCabe's son, he's here in the audience up with his family. I just want to recognize and honor them. They be very kind, and his father that I sponsor here grew up in the Acre, and the Acre boy left the high school, joined the Army. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. McCabe.
Councilor Musia.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to give my congratulations to Paul Rathayem for this suggestion, because people may know the neighbor next door as a friend. People may know him as a father, as an uncle, as a brother, and we know these people as heroes. Anyone that would go off in the prime of their life, just beginning, probably to have a girlfriend, start a family, get married, start a family, but then they go off and they do their duty to preserve our rights and freedom, the right that we have here, the right to vote, the right to sit here and assemble without fear that we're going to be shot, the many rights, the right to gather, the right to be free, freedom. We take all these liberties for granted, but yet someone had to do that to preserve our rights, and these are the people that did. And the funny thing about it is, you have a neighbor and the neighbor dies, you read the obituary and you say, he had a Purple Heart, he had a Medal of Honor, he had a Bronze Star. I didn't even know he was in the service, and yet he never talked about it. Well, we're talking about it. We're honoring you, so this is a very good start. This is a start to something that's going to grow. I'm very proud. I didn't personally go in the service myself. My mother had 5 brothers. They all went into some form of the service, Vietnam, the Korean War. They were all staggered in age. I'm very proud of those people that went to preserve our rights. We don't recognize them enough, and as people are getting older and people are dying, the younger generation is not fully as patriotic as they probably once were. So I'm very grateful to Paul Rathayem and to Eric Lamache, who has done a tremendous job as the veterans agent. Thank you so much for making this program happen. Thank you.
Any other comments? If there are no other comments, I just want to say these are beautiful photos and beautiful flags. And again, if LTC could capture the angle and view these photos, don't worry about putting me on camera. I'd rather have the camera on these photos for the next few minutes, because Mr. Lamarche going to remove them pretty soon. And thank you, Mr. Lamarche, and for what you do with the Veterans Commission and to honor the veterans, and the city is very, very proud of what you have done. No other comments. Need a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Yam, second by Councilor Gishia. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. And Mr. Lamarche, anytime that you're ready, maybe 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, so the photos can be seen on camera on TV over and over again for the next few minutes, that'd be great. And then whenever you're ready, please.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're here till 8. The staff, maybe they can grab them. We can leave them here and just put them in the mayor's office.
Sure, that'd be great. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor?
Now go to.
Before we hit the
Rook.
public hearings, could you take 7.8 out of order, please? We have a speaker on it.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Rook, second by Councilor Nguyen.
Also, may I also,
One moment, Councilor.
yes, move the motion 12.13, Mr. Mayor. We have the speakers here so that they can speak and can go home after that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilor Young, please give me 1 minute. 7.8. That's Councilor Rook, right? Yeah. Okay. So we have enough time to do 7.8 before the public hearing? Okay, motion by Councilor Rook, second by Councilor Nguyen to take motion 7.8 up the agenda. 7.8, vote parking pass card agreement, One Riverfront LLC, waive for reading and second reading by title. Authorizing, in the City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to execute pass card parking agreement with One Riverfront LLC at Lower Locks Municipal Parking Facility and Davidson Street parking lot in the City of Lowell for parking for residential use located at 1-537 Merrimack Street, Lowell. Any comments or questions? Mr. Clerk, we have a registered speaker on that.
Dave Daly?
Thank you. David Daly, the manager of our One Riverfront LLC. There's a lot of negative news out there today, but there's a lot of positive stuff going on in the city. It's great to see you with the Juneteenth celebrations coming up with the Black African community and celebrating our veterans. It's really good stuff. Anyways, I just want to thank the city administration specifically as well, Terry Ryan and Christine McCall. This has been a couple years in the making. No fault of their own, but things have changed in semantics and details of this contract, and we finally got it across the finish line, and we want to thank, obviously, the Golden administration to get it there. So it's been great, as always, working with the city. It's a great project. It's a really exciting project, and we have this parking agreement to be able to move it forward. So I just want to thank everyone in the city specifically. Thank you.
Any other registered speaker, Mr. Clerk?
No.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to take a moment to thank Mr. Daly for investing in the city and for caring so much about the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Any other comment by the councilor?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Councilor Rook, second by Councilor Robinson. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Scott?
Yes.
Councilor Yem?
Yes.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater?
Yes.
Councilor Getchia?
Yes.
Councilor Janess?
Yes.
Councilor Leahy?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Noon?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Rourke?
Yes.
11 yeas.
Councilor Young, which did you want to move up one of the item up the
Yes.
agenda?
The motion 12.13, Mr. Mayor. We have a registered speaker here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I didn't get the number.
Motion by Councilor Yam to move item 12.13 up the agenda, second by Councilor Drinkwater. Motion 12.13, Councilor Yam, Councilor Scott, request city manager have appropriate department explore installing a four-way stop sign at the corner of Suffolk and Broadway Street, along with painting pedestrian crosswalk on Broadway Street. Mr. Clerk, would you call the registered speaker, please?
Milka Ferraris?
Good evening. So we would like this motion to be approved because we are having so many incidents happening in our street. And the last one that happened was last week with a car hit our building. Thanks God nothing happened, so that person is okay, but the car was total loss. And we suffer from that ourselves as well, me and my neighbor here as well. Our cars were also suffer from that a couple of years ago. So we would like that to be approved if it's possible. Thank you.
Elizabeth Tiru.
Yes. Hi, I'm here in support of my neighbors. This is the intersection that we are talking about. If you can see, there's many issues in this intersection. This is the Suffolk Street. Right here is the Broadway Street. Right here is a two-way, but down there is just one way. It doesn't have any sign that say that it's one-way street. Also, right here is a city bus stop. Down here is a school bus stop. There are no crosswalk here. Also, we would like to have like 3 stop signs if that is possible, because it's hard to cross the street. And there are many people walking to the market basket that is down there. Also, one of the side of the bridge, there have, let's see. One of the sides of the sidewalk are blocked, and it have cement barriers, so people and most children need to cross from Suffolk to Broadway Street, and there are no crosswalk lines. That all I have to say.
And there's also a school close to it. So that I think also that's important to have a stop sign right there because of the school as well. Okay, thank you.
And there was a Maria Claudio.
Maria couldn't come in.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other registered speaker, Mr. Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Yam, Councillor Scott, Councillor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These are the individual residents in the acre. They called me up and they would like me to visit the location, which is on Broadway, at the corner of Broadway and Suffolk Street. So if you know the area coming from Fletcher Street, you pass the school, Hellenic Academy, and then the roads take a really left turn. There is a bridge there, and there was an accident in a few years ago that somebody almost. Have put up the Jersey barrier to protect it, and then that bridge is also, it still need to be repaired. There's a lot of accident because the people turn so fast, then they hit the building at 192 Suffolk Street. This is where the ladies are living. So if you visited the site, you will see the mark on the building that was hit by cars. Also on the Broadway from one side of Fletcher Street, coming from Dutton Street, it will be two-way traffic. However, when you cross the Broadway onto Suffolk Street toward the St. Patrick Church, it's a one-way street. There's no sign that it's one-way street. Sometimes people take a shortcut from Cross Street. They try to cut to Broadway against the traffic, so that's causing the accident. There's a lot of accident, and the resident report some people who cross the street on Broadway. There's no pedestrian crosswalk painted on Broadway, so they were hit by a car. Fortunately, it's not fatality. However, it's too much trauma for the resident who live on both sides of Broadway where Suffolk Street is. So we would like to have the appropriate department to take a look and explore, four-way stop or some sort of calming measures to reduce the traffic coming from Fletcher Street toward the Market Basket after the Macaris station. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comment? Councilor Scott?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I would just echo, the residents reached out. They said it's an ongoing issue through, history, that there's been incidents there. I'm sure we can look at the historical data to see if that's, the case. But there's definitely, signage issues there, it appears, and crosswalks missing. It's a heavily traveled pedestrian area. So if we could just definitely take a look at it and see what needs to be done. Thank you.
Councilor Murcia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We don't have a traffic engineer yet. No, we don't, right? But you can clearly see the problem and the confusion. When you're coming from Suffolk Street to a two-way and you're crossing Broadway, where there's no signage, you would think that you could go that way when it's one way coming the other way. I would think that you'd need a sign saying, "Do not enter," in the beginning of that street. So when you're coming out of that two-way, crossing Broadway, and you see the sign, "Do not enter," you won't enter. That is a tragedy waiting to happen. So I think it needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. Thank you.
No other comments? All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. I understand that we have some other registered speaker on one more motion, but it being past 7, we need to go to the public hearing for a little bit, and then we'll take up the motions with registered speaker again. We'll start with, actually, we just complete with the city clerk. 3.1, Minutes of Neighborhoods Subcommittee, joint with Public Safety Subcommittee, May 17th. City Council regular meeting, May 17th, for acceptance. Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Jeunesse, second by Councilor Leahy. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to 4, general public hearings. 4.1, ordinance amend zoning extension TTF zone 89 Agawam. This portion is now open to all those in favor. Open to all those in favor. That portion is now closed. We now open this portion to all who oppose. Open to all who oppose. This portion is now closed. Any comments? Hearing none. Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Murcia, second by Councilor Scott. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Councilor Getchia.
Yes.
Councilor Jeunesse.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Murcia.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
That's 11 yeas.
We now go to 4.2, ordinance amend fee schedule, custodial fee. This portion is now open to all those in favor. Open to all those in favor. This portion is now closed. We now open to all those who oppose. Open to all those who oppose. This portion is now closed. Any comment? Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Yam, second by Councilor Rourke. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Councilor Getchia.
Yes.
Councilor Jeunesse.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Murcia.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
That's 11 yeas.
4.3, ordinance create position and salary of cadet LPD. We're now open to all those in favor. Open to all those in favor. This portion is now closed. Open to all those who oppose. Open to all those who oppose. Hearing none. Any comments by the councilors? Councilor Scott?
Just a quick comment or question. This says it's under the Community Police Development Micro Grants Program, so the position is a fully grant-funded position. Am I reading that correct?
Mr. Manager?
Chief.
Just to let the public know that the position is under a grant. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The position is fully funded by the micro grants program?
I believe so. I'm not sure the funding. I didn't have our research and development manager here with me on the funding, but there are 3 city positions, full-time city positions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, need a motion to adopt by Councilor Murcia, second by Councilor Leahy. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Scott.
Yes?
Councilor Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Councilor Getchia.
Yes.
Councilor Janess.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
11 yeas.
We now go to 5, which is utility public hearing. There's none on the item today. There's one motion with a registered speaker. I need a motion to suspend the rule by Councilor Robinson, second by Councilor Nguyen. To suspend and move up item 12.20, which is my motion. If there's no objection, I'd like to read the motion from up here. 12.20, request city manager have LPD looking to cut through traffic on Concord Street from Church Street to Roger Street and explore possible use of speed bump. Second by Councilor Leahy. Mr. Clerk, please call the registered speaker.
Randy Gagnon.
Who is it? Can you call the registered speaker again?
Randy Gagnon.
Is that person not here? Was there somebody here to speak on the cut through Concord Street? I thought this was a registered speaker on that one, so.
I had one.
Oh, you had one, but that person did not show up?
I don't see him.
Okay. Wonderful. This motion pretty much speaks for itself, just to look into the possible calming the traffic in that area. I'm hearing no other comments. Councilor Leahy?
Sure. Through you to the manager. So I've been talking a lot about speed humps, if we could take a look at that. Like, the speed bumps will work, but I think we really should start to using some of these speed humps that other communities use. So if we could take a good, serious, hard look at that now and maybe start installing some of those on a on a temporary basis to see how they work out and see what happens. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. I agree. I like the idea Councilor Leahy just brought forward. We've had these discussions in the past. Through you to maybe Ms. McCall, do you have a general idea of what the temporary implementation or speed bumps are? Those 4-way or 2-way, because there's quite a bit of areas, I think, citywide that would benefit as utilizing them temporarily to get some data back and see if it's something we could do long-term. Thank you.
Ms. McCall?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Robinson. We did apply for a shared streets grant through Mass DOT. We presented it quite a few weeks ago, and we're hoping to hear soon. And so we evaluated different types of residential streets. So some wouldn't qualify for a speed hump or a speed bump, and we actually wanted to do chicanes with rubber, what used to be outside on Merrimack Street. We intended to do a pilot program using the grant funding to purchase speed humps, speed bumps, to place in key locations throughout every neighborhood for different types of streets to see if they would actually slow traffic down. If it worked, we'd work with residents, we'd keep it, and then, you know, come back to you for capital funding to make physical improvements to the roadway. So our goal was to secure this grant funding to pilot it in 10 to 12 streets, and then should they work, to buy more and try them on different streets. So that we don't know if we got the grant or not. So that's sort of the status right now.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up. When you implemented them out here, outside City Hall, did you notice a reduction in speed from the motor vehicle traffic?
We did, and we got a lot of positive feedback, especially about the crosswalk reduction. I think that was the most complaints is, you know, the crosswalk mostly for city employees, but obviously for a lot of downtown residents and visitors to the businesses in the area. The distance on the crosswalk to cross Merrimack Street, cars would, you know, if they were going in the opposite direction, would try to cut the pedestrian off. And I do think we did see a decrease in pedestrian accidents and pedestrian almost accidents. So we did think it helped.
Thank you.
Councilor Kishia?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to DPD Assistant City Manager. Question for you. Out front, since we're talking about out front, Merrimack Street in Worthing, the light right here.
Yeah, the
Can we
flashing.
get that back working, please? Because what that will do is slow down traffic coming this way and almost hitting people in that crosswalk. It just blinks, so people decide that they're gonna fly as fast as they can to try to catch the second light to go downtown. So if we put that back operational, it will slow down people to those crosswalks. And it's a major problem, especially when the sun's out and everything's down there, and it takes employees in City Hall's life in jeopardy at that crosswalk.
Any other comments, question? Councilor Leahy?
Sure. So with that light, the blinking light out there, there is a history with that, right? Why did we blink? Why did we make that blinking? Wasn't there a reason for that? Does anybody remember?
Yes, but I don't recall exactly off the top of my head, so I don't want to answer it off the cuff, but
All right.
we'll look into it and get a full report
Yeah,
back to
see
the
what
council.
that. And then, is there any plans to put the speed humps out in front of City Hall?
We didn't have speed humps proposed for out front of City Hall. We did want to redeploy the shared streets temporary measures because we do have funding to make the physical improvements out front, but we probably won't be able to do that until later this year or even next year to do.
All right, I mean, we have to do something out there. People just don't stop. I was cutting through the crosswalk tonight, and people just don't pay attention. So unless we put something in the road that's gonna lift their car up, they're not gonna stop. So I don't know why, we really need to put speed bumps out there. I mean, Lawrence does it on some of their main roads, and, I mean, they put speed bumps, and it just slows everything down to a crawl. If that's what we want in front of City Hall, then just put speed bumps out. I mean, it'd take us, I don't know what they cost, but we really need to do this. I don't think we can wait till next year. If we want to slow down the traffic in front of City Hall, we need to put a speed bump. And you can go up to Lawrence on Essex Street and see what they do. I mean, it stops everybody to a crawl. The big trucks go 1 mile an hour over it because their trucks stop. So that would be my suggestion. I don't think we can wait any longer out there. Thank you.
No other comments or questions? All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go back to continue agenda by order. We're now at 6, communication from city manager. 6.1 are the motion responses. A, motion response, Robertson School dismissal. Any comment, Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. I went through this. First, I'd like to thank Chief Golner, City Manager, for a prompt response on this. I have a couple concerns, though. I think the intent behind this, when I filed it, and I appreciate what we're doing, city side. I'm a little bit disappointed that in this response, the schools kind of said it's not a priority of theirs. I think in an area like Centerville, with that many youth, until we can really concentrate and get serious community-based policing back in certain areas, it could lead to potential standoff or confrontational situations, which are unnecessary. I mean, we're at a basketball court. These are kids coming out of school looking to play ball in the summer or after school with their friends. I was hoping the schools would have been a little bit more involved as far as dismissal time. I mean, after all, it's the end of their driveway. And I'm not asking for them to step in and physically restrain kids. I'm just asking, keep an eye out towards the end of the driveway. If you see students that just left your building climbing roofs of nearby properties and ripping shingles off, at least you know who these students are. And I don't think these are bad kids. I think these are kids that are bored. I don't think we have enough constructive activities on dismissal after school, which we're currently working on. But I'd like to see if we could maybe get the schools a little bit more involved on this, just to keep an eye out. I don't think, I mean, we're talking young children with not much to do, and I don't think this really warrants severe, police interaction at this point of it. I think it's more so, let's find out what these kids would like to see provided, so we give them something constructive to do, and maybe they leave some of these residents alone out of boredom. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the councilor. We have had these discussions, councilor, just recently, as you know, and I know that the superintendent has followed up with the captain in that sector. But we are also trying to pay attention to other issues that are happening with after-school activity. I did speak with the superintendent about this. We're concentrating on downtown, but I would like to introduce also the superintendent to, I know he followed up on some of this stuff as well, but we are talking about, and the council should know this, some of the things that are going on through downtown as well. We're trying to get some of the teachers more actively engaged. Superintendent?
Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, Councilor. So as the manager was talking, we're running, with our youth services program, we're running some after-school programs. We started rotating based on staffing at different schools. We just finished up, or we're finishing up, our after-school Frisbee program with all the different schools. We partnered with the Lowell school system as well. And I believe it's June 4th. We're going to have a big jamboree. We're hoping to have almost 200 kids from all the area schools that have participated in our after-school programs to come to the jamboree. We'll be having a cookout as well. We're working all the time now with the Lowell Public Schools. We partnered with them to try to deter some of this. Between our after-school programs, we're running programs before school as well. You know, limited staff right now, but we're working hard. We have volunteers from the Lowell Fire Department working with us, or volunteers from the police department, from the school department. We've run, as you know, Robbie Mitchell was here from the collaborative, and we partnered with them for the basketball camp. We're working on, actually we're going to be meeting in the next few weeks on working with a flag football is what he'd like to run, and we're looking with our research and development to have some grants to fund the basketball and the flag football leagues in the fall. So we're working on this. We're working with all our partners in the community as well to try to do exactly what you're talking about. Get the kids into some constructive activity after school. Maybe it'll be basketball leagues at the Robinson, and we did the 3-on-3 camp, 3-on-3 camp at the end of the basketball school. So we're working on it. The manager is aware. For now, I guess the answer for us was to provide police presence with our district response officer at the Robinson School to help facilitate a smooth flow, so there aren't any problems. It's more of a presence, and then we have another officer that goes by and is assisting the when he's available with the traffic flow at the Robinson and the McAuliffe as well. So we're working every day on it, and we're trying to build our programs, and with all the partners in the community, they're helping us out to help staff this for now. We'll be opening, and we just talked tonight about partnering up as well on our boxing program that we're going to be opening in a few weeks, and we'll be inviting the council to that as well. So we're hoping to have some good things for the kids.
Thank you very much, and that's great to hear. Anything, again, that the council might be able to step up and help with these, and maybe put a call out to any other community partners that are willing to step up and provide our kids some constructive activities to do, I think that's great. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we go to B, motion response, School Street retaining wall. Councilor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Ms. McCall. Thank you for the report. I'm a bit disappointed that the last report that we received was March 31st, and the motion response saying that the association pulled the permit February 15, and permit was issued, and then they got the engineer, and we anticipated, according to the response on March 31st, we anticipate construction begin within the next several weeks, depending on the weather. But today, the report stating that the association is short on money. So what does that leave the resident and the children who walk to school from the Low Highlands? You know, that's just my question, and it is concerning. It's been about 2 years now, and every time you watch the children have to dodge onto the onto the oncoming car to the street to get around that wall. So I think the time that we have to do something about it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Councilor, this is a very serious safety issue that we're all completely dialed in with and understanding. These motions, when we're reaching out to folks, sometimes information comes in a little bit later than Thursday and Friday when we're trying to put this together. But in speaking with David Fuller, the building commissioner, as well as the assistant city manager, we are under the impression that the condo association is taking this very serious as of just recently. They are raising their fees to get the additional money. We are cautiously optimistic this is going to be dealt with within the time frame of the 15th of August. Now, I say cautiously optimistic because I'm always concerned with this type of work, given the nature, and finding out who would possibly do it. But we do have the ability to fine, which, as many of the councilors have heard, we try to send out a yellow flag that we are serious about this. I think that this condo association knows this. I think that Mr. Fuller and Ms. McCall have made it crystal clear how much of a safety issue this is, and that we've waited far too long for this. So this is something that we are completely dialed in on, but I just want to be clear, unfortunately, by the time we put these packets together, which was last week, we've now continued to hear updates, which we will continue to monitor this, and this is on our radar screen. We want this done prior to the 15th, when the permit would be
Expired.
would expire. Thank you very much, Council.
Mr. Mayor, through you, through the manager, thank you, Mr. Managers. I appreciate it. I receive constant phone call from the neighbor who live right behind on Spring Ave, and there's a gentleman live on School Street, and he watches children, and he always remind me, you know, need to be done before a tragedy happened. You know, one of these kids got hit by a car as they walked to school. I appreciate, you know, that that we take this seriously. My last question is that, what if the association don't have enough money to do the work? What are our options as a city? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Once again, through you to the councilors. We have already discussed this with legal. This has once again, I can't, because you and I have discussed this, the seriousness of this and kind of the lax response we've received from the condo association. The city would be in the position to move forward to fix something like this because of the safety issue, or continue the fines and then lien the property. So, in speaking with our attorney, that's something we definitely can do. However, we would like to do it. We'd like them to act appropriately and to move expeditiously. So we're very cognizant of the concerns, Councilor, that you've raised to me and to everyone here.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Manager Golden. This has been a problem, and it's way past, you know, yellow light. It's green light. I mean, it's a red light all the way. It's been 2 years. You know, they keep telling us they pulled the permit and they're going to get the work done, and now they're saying they don't have the money. You know, luckily, nothing happened yet. So, would it be possible, through you, to Madam Solicitor, can the city do the work and put a lien on the association?
Through Mr. Manager to Madam Solicitor.
There are other approaches that can be taken. However, my understanding is that a great amount of effort has been made thus far by the building department in getting us to the point we're at. I understand that historically this has gone on far too long. However, the efforts that I understand have been made in these past months and weeks have brought us to this point. I was just speaking today to the building commissioner. It's his intention within the next week to call to check on it and to really keep them on a very short leash. We'll be reporting to the manager, and if over the course of the next few weeks things don't begin to change and money surfaces and work is going to commence, then absolutely there are further steps that we've already started to discuss that we can and will be taking, because this is not an issue that is going to linger much longer.
If that's the case, please give them a timeline. Give us a timeline, report back to us the timeline for this to be done. And don't give a long timeline, because we've been waiting for too long to get this done. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Yeah, excuse me. Councilor Noon just touched on it. Do we have a definite date that we can establish and get on the same page that it's either this is the action we're looking for by this date, it's moved too long, and if not, this is what we're doing? Because again, I know this current manager's new, but this has been ongoing for quite some time, and I've heard so many excuses come from the association, it seems like, although it's aggressive now, it's still, I think we need to come up with a hard deadline and say, this is it. We're moving forward without it unless you meet what we're looking for. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, once again through you to the council. That hard stop line, or August 15th, they do have the ability to do it until August 15th, but I think with the additional checking in by Mr. Fuller, I think we're going to move this line. We're not, this is a no-nonsense situation. I know that most of you have driven by this area. It's extremely dangerous, you know, quite frankly, one of my concerns is I understand that they don't have the money and they're working towards that. I personally think it may have been an insurance piece, but that's just my opinion. I don't think they were taking this as serious as they are now, and with Mr. Fuller checking in with them, I think they realize that this is a very serious situation, and I can't stress enough with Councilor Yem and Councilor Nun have giving me a call on this stuff. This is not going to be taken lightly. I mean, there are, you know, we do have an opportunity. We love to give people that opportunity to finish this, but if fines are necessary, it will happen. And if we do need to find the additional capital to get this done, once again, this is stuff that we've been discussing. We will make that happen as well.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that, you know, the hard deadline is they have to be done by August 15th, right? But they have to be off that corner. I think the big shock to them was they thought they were going to fix one side, and they have to fix the whole wall. So it wasn't properly put up. So they have to be off Middlesex Street by August 15th at least, and then working in the back. But that should be our goal, to get that open up by school. So thank you.
No other comment. We'll go to the next motion response C, EV infrastructure bill funding. Councilor Nguyen and Councilor Jines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Managers and Ms. McCall, the Assistant City Manager, DPD Director, for the report. It's very encouraging to see that there's an opportunity for grant funding for more in our community with the charging for electrical car. You know, so please keep us updated on this. You know, when you put up the applications, and keep us updated. You know, what's the outcome of it. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Mayor.
Councilor Jines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to echo Councilor Nguyen's thoughts and thanks to the department and the manager for the report, and thanks to Christine McCall and Catherine Moses and everyone else in DPD who's working hard on this. I was surprised but encouraged by the note in here that we have twice as many municipal EV charging ports as Cambridge does. I think that's a good benchmark, and I'm glad to see that we're ahead of the curve here. And I think this is very important, and it's only going to get more important going forward. So I appreciate the attention to it, and look forward to see what's next. Thank you very much.
No other comments. We'll go to the next motion response D, Underground Railroad History Signage. Councilor Drinkwater.
I think this was actually Councilor Robinson.
Councilor
if you want to go first.
Robinson. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, basically the reason I filed this initially in the original motion was brought forward by Councilor Drinkwater, And again, Free Soil's been doing a lot of work in the community. This was more just an update because with all the changes and everything else that went on in the past 6 months or whatever, I just didn't want this to fall off anyone's radar, and I was reassured that it's on everyone's radar and they're working towards the common goal, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Drinkwater?
And I would echo that. It's great to see that there are a few initial pieces of signage in production right now, and look forward to seeing the progress. Thank you.
No other comments or questions. We go to the next motion response. E, dog parks. This was my motion, and I want to thank Christine McCall for the report. It's a good report. I understand that we live in a dense city. It's hard to create new space, therefore new dog parks. But I appreciate that the administration is exploring the usage of maybe share with existing parks to section a portion of it for dog parks. I'm sure that many owners of our furry friends would appreciate having extra space for their pets, pretty much for the family members. But also with the existing dog parks, if the administration just maintain it, improve it, work with what we have is also good. Just improve it, make it better for our four-legged family members. So thank you for the report.
Quick question.
Councilor Leahy?
Sure. Last time this was brought up, there was talk of moving it, but we're not moving it, right? It's going to stay where it is for now. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We now go to F, motion response. Cambodia town flags. Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me thank Representative Radimam for obtaining the earmark from the state of the $200,000 to help on this project. And Assistant City Managers Christine McCall and her team, DPD, have done a lot of work already in this area. You see the pictures of the crosswalk, and a lot of people really, the business in those areas really happy, and thank you for that. And the work continue. Your team work in partner with the Cambodian Cambodian Mutual Assistance Association, the CMAA, and Cambodian Town. So this project really going forward to support design and construction of Cambodian Town archway, certainly with some input from the business and also the community. That the partnership that you're doing now with CMAA go a long way, and a lot of those business really happy for that progress. Thank you.
No other comments or questions. We now go to G, motion response. Four-way stop sign at 5th and Red. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. With an area like this, if it's not a candidate for a four-way stop, does that rule out potential any other traffic calming measures or something along those lines, or is this kind of criteria strictly for four-way stops and stop signs?
Through Mr. Manager to Ms. McCall.
No, it only applies to four-way stops. This intersection does not meet the minimum criteria for a four-way stop, but that wouldn't preclude it from us doing other traffic calming measures. We would just have to look into this particular street and apply specific measures that would make a difference at this intersection.
Okay, thank you, because again, this is high pedestrian traffic area, and we have a local convenience store right there, so anything that we might be able to look at and potentially do would be great. Thank you.
No other comments. We go to H, motion response. Palmer Street sidewalk brick repair. Councilor Gishier, Councilor Leahy, Councilor Janess. Who wants to go first?
What Councilor Janess up on the big screen?
All right.
Do you have any comments?
Thank you, Councilor Leahy. Yes, I do. So I stopped by there and did see the improvements. Tried out the sidewalk dining last Wednesday, and definitely a big improvement. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the continued work that's planned there. So just thank you.
Any other comments? Councilor Gishia.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. I want to thank Mark Byrne and his staff for going down there and doing that. And also, in the memo, one of the encouraging things is that there's a dead tree down there, and they're going to take it down and replace it. So I think that's a move forward when we start replacing those things. Thank you again.
Mr. Manager.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Councilor Gitcha, you are correct. There is a dead tree down there. We're in discussions about that right now. This may come down sometime in September, as just given looking at the commissioner here. But we are looking at, just to let everybody know, we are looking at potted trees as well. One of the concerns that we have with so many of the sidewalks down there is the fact that the roots are continuing to, quite frankly, destroy the sidewalks. And we're looking at options to do a larger style potted tree, which would work in a couple of fashions. It could be, one, it's going to save our sidewalks. That's probably one of the most important things on tripping hazards. Two, we could use it as a safety measure as well. So those are things we're looking at. I just wanted to let the council know when this tree comes down, we are considering looking at some of these larger container trees or potted trees. I'm not talking about something you could move. So.
Councilor Gishia.
It's encouraging to see, because if you go to most communities, their downtowns, you'll see that they're able to contain, and Lexington has brick sidewalks, so they contain their trees within it and make sure there's certain types of trees that grow, but it means a lot to a downtown community to have that down there. And I thank you for even putting them in the conversation, because a lot of times we just cut and go, and I think it's important.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council again. We're looking definitely for this feedback, this type of discussion. If this, once again, container tree, potted tree is a large tree. This is not something that we want anyone to think or misconstrue that we'll be cutting down trees and clear cutting and whatnot. We definitely think that, especially in the downtown area, it is something that I think people enjoy seeing, especially from the streetscape. So these are just things that we're thinking about to try to save the sidewalks and the issues in the future.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll now go to the next item, I, motion response. Traffic lights at Varnum Avenue and VFW. Councilor Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this, by the response is a very simple answer. It was basically a phone call that was made, by Mr. Byrne to get it reset, right? So I guess in the bigger picture of things, this is something I had called over the past year, maybe 3 or 4 times on, and it wasn't done. Thus filing the motion. A lot of the motions that we do have and a lot of responses that we do have surround traffic and stop signs and striping and things like that. And I do see a position on here for later on this evening, Mr. Manager, about maybe a facilities or infrastructure project manager, or is it going to be somebody in your administration where a councilor could just reach out to that person to say, hey, look, we need to do a stop sign or a 4-way or fix a traffic light somewhere. One, to maybe knock down some of the responses that I'm sure take time for your departments to write, but B, 2, to give you time to work on the larger issue type of things that are required of a city manager. No motion doesn't deserve to be filed and spoken about, especially when there are speakers. But take my response, for example, right? I mean, this is something that could have been taken care of inside of 5 minutes on the first phone call, and it took 3 or 4 tries, and then finally a motion to be filed. It's just a suggestion. I don't know if it's a motion that has to be filed or talked about, but you plan on having somebody in your administration that works for DPW or the traffic engineer or what, where 11 councilors, one can just call somebody and to get this done, and whether it's done in a week, if not, we file a motion on it. But again, something where we're not bogged down with responses about 4-way stop signs and and striping a intersection. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Councilor, yes, there is an answer, and it's pretty direct. Right now, I want to first say thank you to the commissioner the assistant city manager, and all the department heads, because they've indulged myself with a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages, which we welcome from the council and, of course, all of our residents. But currently, right now, we are down 4 spots just in the manager's, manager's office as a whole. And it is my hope that before the end of June, we will have a not full, but a pretty close to having a full team. And I have to take the opportunity to thank the CFO as well for playing a couple of different roles, as well as legal and everybody else jumping in. But to answer your question directly, yes, it is my goal before the end of June to have minimum 2 other people on that team to ensure that this is going to be a little bit smoother. We would let the councilors know if there are things that need to be dealt with rather quickly. Councilor O'Rourke, like what you're talking about, there's going to be a point of contact, and that should be happening once again before the end of June, given the fact that we're already here almost close to the end of May. So, and that's onboarding process and allowing people to join the team. So, let's put a time frame on it. I would probably say for July 1. The council will have a very clear indication of who they can call. They can always call me. They can always call anybody up here, but of course the commissioner as well. But we will have one point of contact where everybody should feel comfortable calling. And
I just think it'd be beneficial with 11 councilors now.
100%.
And look at, these motions don't come out of thin air, right? They're filed on behalf of residents that have concerns. We saw it tonight, with the Broadway, intersection and things like that. I'm sure, Assistant City Manager McCall loves writing, reports about, 4-way stop signs and so forth. But, we want to focus on the bigger picture things about bringing businesses to the city and, outreach and hiring and do all, the important stuff. And not that this is important, but if we could establish somebody that we as councilors, now, if it's an ordinance thing we have to do, we can contact that person directly, without going to the manager or so forth to get something done. And if it's not done to our liking, or if it's not done on time, then we file a motion and, that, it came because, it wasn't done.
Sure. And the neighborhood liaison, everyone's asked for that. I was over in the Highlands not too long ago, and they were talking about that neighborhood liaison piece. That all this is going to be happening. I just ask for your indulgence once again. I think we're in week 4 from my administration. Having these discussions, trying to get folks to join the team, and I think we're going to be pretty successful with some of the things happening for, I'm going to say July 1, which end of June, July 1.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Thank you.
No other comments. We now go to the next item. J, motion response. Cemetery work garage facility. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. This is great. For a long time, those employees haven't skipped a beat right through. Wintertime, they're still performing burials and doing the work with very bare bones. So any commitment the city can make for a workforce like that is greatly appreciated. And by putting something as simple as a canopy over a loom pile, you'd be amazed how much of a difference that makes for the people that are doing these laborious jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the councilors, that canopy piece, Councilor, was when we had this discussion, that was probably one of the easiest ones. You're trying to move mud. That's a lot different than dirt. So one of that, and then of course we have the stockpile, and then we should be looking at the capital plan for the remainder. But I did speak with the commissioner as well, and we are going to try to get some things done over there for those folks as well.
Thank you. Greatly appreciated.
No other comments or questions. We now go to K,
$50,000 in the out years. Did we receive, or did the state allocate more money for Chapter 90 funds, which is the roadway work?
Mr. Manager?
The answer to that is no. There was some small bridge programs and things of that was increased, but right now the budget is still moving. Even Chapter 90 is still moving forward. But Chapter 90 for that type of aid stayed the same. The Senate did things that were differently. There's still a discussion going back and forth on that.
So it's still at the original $200 million from 2012?
That's correct.
Even with the gas prices?
Well,
all
it's
the
$200 million.
petroleums?
Yeah, Council, there was $200 million when I was last there. We voted on, and then we also had the small bridge program, and there are other programs that money was put into, which we're still deciphering what's going to happen between the House and the Senate on that. And in regards to the other piece, we do have some cash set aside from free cash, which is to the tune of approximately, it's not approximate, it's $2 million, which we're going to look at increasing our investment in our road projects.
My question is the state has to start doing it. You know, and the state's running and hiding from these Chapter 90 funds. And we had Manager Donahue send off a letter to them asking for more funding. And now we have a new manager who may have more influence down there. I would suggest and ask this council to support a motion that you would write another letter down there asking that they increase it as soon as possible, because with the gas prices, the petroleum's up, these road projects are coming to near zero, and it's just falling apart.
We also have something, and I don't disagree with you, Councilor, at all, but I know that the House had already supported the $200 million, and I'm unsure of where the Senate is at this time, so that might be stuck in conference committee. I could be wrong on that. I didn't read my recent reports today, but when the House did increase, they increased other programs under the Chapter 90 needs assessments. There was absolutely, Mass Municipal Association made a major push to get that to happen. The House just chose to put that money in different areas of what I would say is not Chapter 90, but where those the gas tax goes. Now, where it's going to happen, I'd gladly get back, because it's one of the pieces we need to know between the House and the Senate, and what finally the governor is going to sign into law. And that's something if we could take that in a form of a motion, I'll gladly either just make the call and report back next week, or send the letter, whichever one is easiest.
Yeah, it's fine that you make the call, but I just think that, you know, the cities and towns with the most juice are getting the most money, and it should be a formula like it was before, because that's fair play across the board. And I just think whoever has the most juice is getting the most money. And in this case, Lowell hasn't been seeing its fair share, and our roads are falling apart. And, you know, $200 million is not going to do anything for us, and it hasn't. We're falling behind and behind and behind, and that's why the city engineer is looking more into pavement preservation than they are at replacement of roads. And I just think that the funding that's down there needs to come to us in the way of a formula that's set for everybody across the board by population and by road miles, and I think that's fair. But again, if you could make that call and just see, you know, what is the will, and are we going to see more funding, because it's important that we get this in place and we can set contracts right now, because right now you can't get anybody to do anything under a contract.
We are having those discussions in regards to the road repair projects and trying to expand those road repair projects. Actually, due to the motion that you had filed last week, I think it was, the discussion that we had with the engineers.
I'm just having a hard time seeing it. When I just looked at the budget here, the police recommended $30,000 in line painting. We've been talking about line painting since I've been here. $30,000 is basically a recommendation, and that's what got accepted. So, and it was 27.7 last year. So I know there's other areas that it's being used, but we should be supplying our workers with the resources to do it when you start looking at these things. So $30,000 doesn't do anything compared to last year. It's actually less when you start looking at the price of things. Thank you.
Councilor Guccio, so you okay with the manager making a phone call? You don't need that be a motion to be another letter. Thank you. We now go to L, motion response, First Street lighting. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Greatly appreciated. I'm sure the residents over there will be a little bit safer and keep an eye out on each other. Thank you.
No other comments. We go to M, motion response, Oakland Firehouse Repair. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Thank you for the response. And as soon as we get that pole moved, it looks like we'll be able to, are we going to start repairs on the other side of the building and the painting before the pole's moved, or are we waiting for the pole to get started? So,
Mr. Manager,
whoever wants to.
through you to Mr. Byrne.
Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we are going to be moving the pole. It's in design right now. After having several meetings with Mass Electric, as far as the firehouse repairs on the fascia board and all around there, Jim Green from Lands and Buildings and his staff is going to be preparing and doing some work out there over the next few weeks. So we are working on some things, and I have another motion coming in next week that we're going to be doing some firehouse work with the Greater Lowell Vote kids that the manager tasked me to go out and talk to them, and that will probably begin in the fall. So I'll be able to report out on that next week.
Okay, thank you.
No other comments. We now go to N, motion response, bulky item disposal. Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Commissioner Byrne for the report. I think a couple items here that I want to maybe expound on it at the subcommittee, maybe neighborhood subcommittee, given that the waste management, solid waste recycle, the contract is coming up in 2024, and we have to really get the scope and criteria of it by the end of next year. And I like the idea of free bulk item service, so maybe we can expound on that at a subcommittee meeting. I want to refer this to a neighborhood subcommittee, Mr. Mayor, to have that dial into a little bit.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Nguyen to refer this to the neighborhood subcommittee, second by Councilor Robinson. Any other comments?
I have a
Councilor Robinson.
On the end of the report, I don't know if it was a typo or what. It's the alternative, another idea. It said it's estimated the city would need approximately 15,000 square feet of land and 4 new blank. I don't know what that on the motion report response.
Mr. Manager.
I apologize. I'd have to get back to you. I really don't know what that means right there in the end. It might have been a typo.
There was a discussion, Counselor, about what we can do. Obviously, with the amount of money, I believe it's $720,000 that we thought about. The idea being kicked back and forth is the recycling coordinator coming in, which, by the way, we don't have one yet, but we are talking about it, Counselor, to charge the recycling coordinator with coming up with that idea. I think that's where that was going. So my apologies for not catching that, but
Well,
that was
4 new employees that would have to, if we added that 15,000 square feet, would have to add 4 additional employees.
4 additional employees to have it open.
To run that particular site, off-site. And we'd have to find out where that area of land we're going to need.
Correct. So that's the discussion that was continuing to happen. So with the recycling coordinator, the thought process was to try to charge that person with an idea to knock that pin down, if you would, to make sure, because I don't know, Councilor Noon, if the $720,000 is something that a budget could, our budget could handle, to be honest with you. So we're kind of looking at alternative ideas, and that will be a discussion point with the new recycling coordinator when that does happen.
Thank you. And other communities do something similar. I like the option, the alternative, the different type of thinking. 720 is the price, but maybe we look to another Ave, and
if we can possibly get it less expensive, right?
And I know some communities will actually even charge residents minimal fees just to drop off bulk items if possible, and then charge a different fee to pick up.
We're talking about pickup situations, utilizing UTEC. I mean, there was a bunch of ideas being thrown around about that, about how to get that done, appropriately, where people aren't leaving stuff on the side of the road or putting in front of a neighbor's house or whatever the case is. So it is definitely one of our points to tackle with our new coordinator.
And so this is going to subcommittee, correct? Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
No other comment. I see that motion response O and P, they're on the same topic, so motion by Councilor Gishia to bundle them, take them at the same time, second by Councilor Scott. Motion response O is solid waste pickup update, and motion P response is yard waste collection. Any comments or questions by any of the councilors? Councilor Gishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. You know, in the response and through you to Commissioner Byrne, you would think that this is the first year that yards grew grass and people clean their yards. We've had problems with this contractor for some time, and they just kind of go about their business. They cut the business down to such a small amount. They dialed it in for the non-existent routes when there's less yard waste. So then they don't dial it back up when you get heavy areas. And it's the springtime, so we all know that grass grows in Lowell, Massachusetts in the springtime, and people clean their yards. The other night when the thunder and lightning came and everything got wet, they came up the street I live on. They went to lift the bags, it ripped right through, and the poor girl up the street who rakes her yard every day, now she's got to go back out, pick it up, and spend more money because they're missing their targeted days. And it's happening throughout the city more often than not. And then you go up to Christian Hill, the same thing. I was called by a resident up there who said, you know, their yard waste was not picked up for 3 days. And, you know, and I know I could have called down there and said something. I just ran out of time to make those phone calls. But at some point, and I know you're down the recycling coordinator, we have to do better at just managing how we're getting to these neighborhoods and trying to correct these things, especially when we can see weather patterns that are coming and what's going to happen to these areas with high winds and rains and everything else that's happening. But I just wanted to throw that out there. It's not the first time grass grew in this city, and it's not the first time we've come into May and, you know, grass grew and people now all of a sudden don't know that you have to ramp up for the month of May, and then you get to take time off in June and July when the grass isn't growing. But it seems like we use the same workforce we use in June and July as we do in April and May. And then they don't want to increase the workforce because it increases payroll or whatever they're doing there. They dialed it in way too much. And I just think that we have to keep on them to make sure that these neighbors only have to do the yard work once and not 3 times.
Through Mr. Manager to Mr. Byrne.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, to the council. Councilor Gitcher, we've been on the phone on a daily basis. I have 2 coordinators helping me out through this process. I've had meetings now 2 or 3 times since I've been here with Waste Management. I'm on the phone with them on a daily basis. I'm constantly asking them to make sure that they pick up the yard waste, obviously solid waste, recycle, and then the yard waste. I told them it's real important. They know it's real important. They're running into issues going into Wheelabrator to bring their trash, and they get stuck in line for a couple of hours. We're trying to negotiate with Wheelabrator to get our trucks moved up in the line so that they don't go beyond the 60-hour time limit that they're in. So I get updates every night on the yard waste. I report them to whoever wants to ask me about them. Right now, they're on schedule. Do they miss periodically a stop in the contract? We don't want them to miss stops, but periodically they do miss them. I know in the past you've had trouble. We're staying on them. Once a solid waste person comes in, a coordinator comes in, we'll be even on them more. If I find it going, you know, sideways, like maybe you think it is, then I'll bring them in and we'll start fining them, and we have that provision in our contracts that we can do that. So if there's a problem, I want to hear it. We hear it from our residents through Civic Plus, and we get reports, and we report those reports to them every morning. April Hertz and Brian Witz take care of that and handle that for us. And that's what we're doing right now. And we're going to continue to do it and continue to serve the residents of the city that want to get their trash. We don't want trash to stay out there over long weekends or anything in odors and smells. We don't want to see residents have to pick up yard waste after they've just raked and spent several hours doing it over the course of the weekend or during an evening after they've gotten home after they work. So if there's any problems, everybody has my number. I pick up my phone and I'll take care of anything I can to make sure that the residents get taken care of every day.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. Again, would this be something, maybe another conversation to have about potential to offset some of this, the people that are capable of a city compost? You can bring your grass clippings and lawn waste only and dump it, compost it, just as a potential alternative possibility for residents to get rid of something that they might, a couple bags here and there. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. That is absolutely something we could consider from the recycling position and standpoint, and how we're going to reimagine some of these positions. And actually, once again, charge the new coordinator with coming up with these ideas and figuring out how we as a city can make this a lot better for residents and a heck of a lot easier and not waiting. But that absolutely, Councilor, that's where we're hoping to go.
Thank you.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Byrne, for all the work that you're doing. I know they're working really hard to try to get this under control, but I mean, we're still hearing from residents right now about the yard waste not being picked up. My only question, I guess, would be, you mentioned the lines at Wheelabrator. That's something we've never heard before, that issue that's going on. Is it something that you think you're going to be able to really, get under control at this point in time, or is it an ongoing issue? I've heard about the hiring issues with drivers. I work for a company, we hire drivers. We've had to increase our wages, hiring bonuses and everything else. So I'm just curious what we're pushing through waste management that's going to change the situation we're in right now.
Well, I think what happened is that's what the drivers and the supervisor had reported to me. So I was fortunate that I know someone at Wheelabrator, and I made a call to them to help us from the city standpoint, from my previous experience of dealing with them. So they're on restrictions because of DOT, because of their CDL licenses, the drivers. So if they're in line for a couple of hours and there are drivers, the city drivers, those hours count against our time, and they're having a hard time getting back into the city. So we're trying to move them up the line, and hopefully we can reduce those hours. So that's what we're up against.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll now go to the next item Q, motion response, Highland Avenue and Powell Street paving. That was my motion. I want to thank Ms. Chang, city engineer, and Mr. Byrne for looking at these two roads and putting them on the paving list. Councilor Gishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Through you to the manager or to the city engineer, I know we went over this maybe 2 months ago on Highland Ave, and we were talking about it, putting in grass strips over there so we can keep the trees and try to make it, and we had 3 options that were provided us in the packet. I wonder where we are on that, on those options, and are we going to reach out to the residents, and how we're going to do it? Are we going to walk the neighborhood and see if we can get to each door? Are we going to try to do it through the Highlands Association, Neighborhood Association? So, and I'm just wondering where we are on those 3 options.
Through Mr. Manager to Ms. Chang.
Good evening, mayors, councilors, and city managers. So thank you for bringing that up again. Actually, engineering department, we've been busy. We have prepared some conceptual plans for all those 3 options, and also we always prepare a survey forms. It's ready to go. We're hoping to join the neighborhood meeting. I believe they meet every second Monday of the month. So we're hoping to join them to do a quick presentation and quick survey with them on June meetings. So I just need to find out how to get on the meeting. So maybe you can help me with that.
Highland Ave is one of those unique streets in the city where it's split between two districts. So if you have anything that needs to be delivered, Mayor Chow will take the left side of the street, and I can take the right side of the street, and we'll hand out the pamphlets, right?
Absolutely.
Split the plan in half.
I'm not doing it.
We'll plant trees together as well. So.
So it looks like I got both sides of the street.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Chang. Thank you. No other comments. We'll go to the last motion response. R. Beaver Street Bridge. Councilor Janess, any comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, thanks to the city engineer and the city manager for putting this report together. I'm glad to see that this project is moving forward. Obviously, this bridge has been closed for almost 3 years at this point, and I know the residents on both sides of the bridge would like to see this project moving forward. My only question is, I noticed the cost coming in significantly higher over what was budgeted, and the report talks about making up the shortfall in Chapter 90 funds. That's at least $1.4 million in Chapter 90 funds. It seems like a lot that could do a lot of stuff elsewhere. I didn't know if there are other possible sources of revenue that might be able to be used for this bridge, like the municipal small bridge program that was mentioned earlier, or if that would slow the project down too much, or if, I assume that Chapter 90 is probably the best way to do it, if that's what the report says, but I just wanted to mention it since we have talked about the, insufficiency of Chapter 90 funding with other stuff here tonight. So thank you.
Yes, actually, the small bridge funding, unfortunately, this particular bridge does not fall under that category, so we couldn't use that funding. The reason that we went into Chapter 90 is with the steel price and the gasoline price going up so fast, we were concerned that if we were to wait for another funding, we were originally thinking about maybe going to capital, FY2023 capital, but we have to wait, and then we have to rebid it. That price will concern is even higher at that point. So we'll be chasing. So that's why we want to, hopefully, because the bridge been closing for so long, and I know that we get plenty of requests, so that's why we decided to hopefully using Chapter 90 to supplement it.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I'd have is, based on this current plan, do we have any idea in terms of timeline and when we might see this work begin and when it might be complete at this point?
So actually, today we got the signed contract back this morning. So
great.
So that's great. So it's going through the city right now to get the remaining signatures and bonds and all the stuff. We're hoping this bridge can be finished in about 18 months or so, so by the end of next year. Keeping our fingers crossed that there's no more delay. We try to plan this strategically, is that hopefully we can order the steel first and while we're working on other stuff, so we don't have further delays on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Manager, do you have something to add?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through to the council. Council, we felt as though it was vitally important to execute this contract, so we did. And the Chapter 90 monies could be used, no pun intended, but as a bridge to get us there. We're extremely concerned with where the price will continue to go when we're talking about this. I'm confident that we will get this completed, and the Chapter 90 is the one area that we can utilize, and also, as Ms. Chang made mention, potentially the other capital monies. So, but we did feel that this is vitally important. It's been closed too long, and it needed to happen.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What was the timeline so far for completion? 18 months for a bridge that's a little bigger than the manager's desk. I don't understand.
Through Mr. Manager to Ms. Chang.
So there's actually, this particular project, besides the super infrastructures of the Beaver Street Bridge, there's also a pedestrian/utility bridge next to it that will be built. So all the gas line, all the drain line, water line will move to the utility bridge, under the utility bridge, before this can be, before the super structure being replaced. So we get two bridge out of it.
So, I mean, is that something possibly to do in phases so we can get vehicles back over one piece of it and then the pedestrian infrastructure piece could be above and beyond after? Because I know fire department used to use that too, and now your only alternatives are basically up in the Drake it through Pleasant or on VFW, and depending on time of day, neither route is easy.
We actually have to remove the, get the utility up and running first. That's why we start with the pedestrian and utility bridge first. While in the meantime, we will build the pedestrian bridge, utility bridge with all the utility underneath there, and then connect before we can discontinue the existing utility under the current bridge.
Thank you. So either way, it's about 18-month drive time. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
So, quick question too. Do any of these bridges have the potential for what they did on 93? We can't drop a bridge in? Like, what was the technology that they used on that?
On the 93 bridge?
Yeah, where they had the bridges built and they dropped
bridge?
them in, yeah.
I'm not a bridge specialist, so but
can we just find out about it? That's just I'm not looking for an explanation, but I mean, if they can do it over the highway on 93, why maybe some of these bridges in Lowell have the potential to have that drop-in bridge over the weekend? So
this particular one, they will have the bridge deck assemble and then swing it over. I can get you more information if you like in the when I discuss with our consultant.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
No other comments. That completes the portion of the motion responses. We now go to 6.2, informational reports, alphabet S, informational, fiscal year 2023 budget presentation. Mr. Manager.
At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Baldwin to take over the airwaves here, if you have that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager, and I'll be brief, but before the council this evening is a number of business items on the agenda related to the FY2023 budget. All of these items, including the appropriation order for the FY2023 budget, ordinances for any new positions included therein and funded as part of the 23 budget, the capital plan loan order, these will all be referred to a public hearing on June 7th, at which time the public will have an opportunity to speak, and then the council will take action. However, we've prepared, a brief presentation covering some of the highlights. And so before, as I mentioned, before you this evening on your desks are the budget books. You have about 2 weeks to review. It's 786 pages of information. We try with the budget to put as much information as we can so that the council is well informed, but so that the public understands what the tax dollars are used for. And it is not only a financial plan, but also a communication tool for the public to discuss the programs that are funded in each of the departments, how they are funded, what is the funding source for each departmental expenditure. And so within this year's budget for FY 2023, the total all-in number is $502.5 million. That's nearly $500 million. Within that is several different funds. The main operating fund of the city is the general fund. The appropriations included therein are $406.4 million. And then it is also a proposed FY 2023 budget for each of the enterprise funds. These are self-supporting enterprise funds for the utilities and parking. So water, sewer, parking, it's $22.9 million for sewer, $9.8 million for parking, and $11.3 million for the water enterprise. So as I mentioned, we'll walk through a brief presentation. Before you is the calendar. And this is just a reminder that the budget is really a year-long process. It begins in January when the instructions are sent out to the departments, And then through the winter, the finance team is working with department heads to collect their information about their budget requests, to fine-tune those requests within the revenue projections for the next year, and work with departments on all of their mission statement, their goals, their metrics, which are all included in the department detail section of the budget. That takes us through the spring to where we are. If you look on the top right-hand corner, that is where we are today on May 24th. So this evening, also included on the agenda is a vote to accept timely submission of the budget. That satisfies the city manager's requirement under the law to present the city council with a balanced budget. And that is just what is happening this evening. This is a balanced budget. And it will be referred to a public hearing according to the calendar here on June 7th for at least one night of public hearings. The projected adoption happens thereafter, at which time all of the accounts are turned over to the city auditor for implementation into Munis for a fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2022. Now, we have talked with the council up until this point about some of the challenges, and I'll just kind of rehash some of the highlights or the major challenges. They're not unlike many years before the city. The increase year to year for the pension assessment was $1.6 million. Health insurance, the city participates as part of the Group Insurance Commission, so those rates are set by the state. The overall increase was 6.2%. Some plans, because there are several plans, offered by the GIC, increased as much as 10.3%. So the approximate increase is about $1.5 million to the budget. The charter school assessment increased by $4.8 million in FY23. Personnel costs associated with the most recently negotiated memorandum of understanding with the 17 city unions, about $6 million for the 2.5%. And then other fixed costs increase, including solid waste and recycling, and the Greater Lowell Vocational Technical High School's assessment, made up the majority of the challenges in this year's budget. So just dive a little bit deeper into the charter school assessment. As the charter school on Middlesex Street continues to expand grades, the budget impact year to year is something that is a challenge for the city. So if you look at this chart and you look at the assessment going back to FY 2028, that number was $11.4 million. We are expecting, according to the assessment on the cherry sheet for FY23, that assessment to increase by, the assessment to be $37 million. That's a year-to-year increase, net increase, including the increase we saw as part of the Student Opportunity Act in the revenue, the reimbursement for charter schools of $1.7 million. So despite these challenges, there are many highlights and initiatives included in the budget. Some of these we'll get into a little bit further as we talk about the capital plan during the public hearing. But there is several key investments in the quality of life. That is something that we are attempting to measure with specific metrics in the budget. Those are included in the document for the council to review as well as the public. And we will continue to measure those moving forward to see how well these investments are panning out in terms of performance. The capital investments, as I mentioned before, the FY 2023 capital plan loan order in the aggregate is $12.9 million. Our strategy this year is to maximize those taxpayer dollars through bond financing by utilizing any available state, federal, or other private funding source to supplement. Now, I will make a note here that there is only a very small portion of the ARPA funding included in this budget. The ongoing public hearing process is underway. Tomorrow night, I believe, is the last of the public hearing sessions. Those have been well attended. There have been very spirited comments and great ideas submitted by the community, but we do plan after the budget to bring a separate revision to the ARPA plan for implementation, because there is a very specific timeline set forth by the federal legislation. And then finally, as far as highlights and initiatives, is the investment in human capital. And so in the FY 2023 budget, there are strategic investments in the workforce pursuant to many of the motions and comments made by this city council to train, to develop, and to further bring about the city workforce in order to impact those quality of life measures that are so important to us all. So to review in sort of a side-by-side chart of the rising costs, pension assessment, salary and wages, solid waste and recycling, charter schools, and finally on this list is what we're seeing in the economy in rising costs of business for things like gas. For the police, fire, and DPW, the cost of diesel in and of itself is going to be an additional $327,000. So to summarize, the revenues by source, this is a chart we show annually to the council to highlight the difference in the City of Lowell's budget as it relates to many of our peers, our neighbors in Massachusetts. The City of Lowell's revenue pie, as you can see on the screen here, is made up of just over a third of the tax levy. In most communities, the average in Massachusetts is the opposite, where 2/3 of the revenue source for the budget comes from the tax levy. City of Lowell is much more reliant on state and federal grant funding. The green wedge of the pie, charges for services, that includes things like fees for the enterprise funds, as well as what we call local receipts, and those are licenses, permits, all of other miscellaneous receipts collected by the city. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the all-in number for the budget for FY 2023 is just over $500 million. And then finally, to categorize the appropriations included in the budget, the largest component is education. That number, $228 million, includes both the Lowell Public Schools as well as the Greater Lowell Technical High School. The next largest being for general government. That includes all things City Hall. The red wedge of the pie, public safety, is police and fire at $55 million. And then Public Works for just over $51 million. That concludes the presentation. I'll turn it over to the city manager to dive in a little deeper on the challenges and the highlights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baldwin. So first and foremost, I have to say thank you to the CFO, the Assistant City Manager seated to my left, HR, once again legal, the auditor, all the department heads, and especially the commissioner for making the last 22 days very welcoming. We have a lot of challenges, as many of us know. We've discussed this, and the current, to keep business the way it is going currently right now is going to cost the city an increase of 3.5%. Just simply keeping things as is. And quite frankly, having a little bit of a cut in certain areas. I'm looking forward over the next 2 weeks for the councilors to really dive in, look at this budget, and provide the feedback that I think is so necessary. My administration, we made the decision to not only go from 3.5, but to 5.5. I've received a lot of phone calls, a lot of concerns. That additional money will give us the opportunity to put $3.6 million into the manager's contingency fund. And as I'm talking to councilors, you all know this, this is something that we're going to have the ability to do together over the next year. The reason to do this well, first and foremost, this is an extremely difficult decision, and I understand that. But once again, if we're trying to increase the quality of life in the city of Lowell and change the way we've been doing business, I think this additional 2% is vitally needed. One of the reasons in the EMG report that most of you know about the building facility study, we have short-term and long-term capital needs that are in approximately the $120 million range. It's $123 million. The internal report that was completed in 2022 for the firehouses is $9.6 million. We've discussed a pay and class study where we could have this study. We've already reached out to UMass to see if they could assist us with it. But this additional 2% could give us the opportunity to actually fund that pay and class study. We've discussed this, we've talked about this, and far too many times we have really dedicated employees that are here, and they're here for the right reason. But unfortunately, Some are getting called away to go to other communities, and it's about money. It's about the money that other people are offering. That pay-in-class study, in my opinion, is probably one of the most important things that we can do to support the most vital resource we have, and that's our employees. Another piece that this 2% would go towards is investing in employee training for not only just our middle managers, but our employees as well. Trying to grow our employee base and giving each and every one of them a ladder up to know that there is something here for you. Our goal, or my goal, and in talking to all of you, I want people to say, I want to work here in the city of Lowell. I don't want them comparing and leaving and going someplace else. The other piece I have real concerns with, there's no secret on this, pick up any newspaper, is inflationary concerns. The CFO had discussed where diesel has gone, where gas has gone. I've sat with some department heads that use an awful lot of fuel, and they do it correctly. I would never say they don't, but they're extremely concerned with the budget that we've presented that they may actually go over. Inflation is a major concern of mine. It's a major concern of the CFO and the team. What our hope is to also have the ability to pay as we go on some of these capital projects that we want to tackle. And the capital projects could be, once again, the EMG report or in the firehouse or anything like that. One piece that we've done in the past, which I truly believe that we need to get away from, is trying to reduce our reliance on one-time funds. We should start to eliminate what I would refer to as a structural deficit that we've been too used to using. We have savings. We do use it. We're using it this year to the tune of approximately $3.2 million. That, to me, is something that we need to change. Will we change it in 1 year? The answer probably will be no. Now, at the end of every year, when we have free cash, we take that money and we put it back in to our savings account or our rainy day account, whichever one you want to, however you want to call it. It's so vitally important to have that rainy day account in the event something happens. The bond ratings, the bond rating companies, they look at it, they pay attention to it, and once again, I believe their opinion is 10%. They would like to see us have 10%, which we're pretty close. With the way that Wall Street, I would say, or the ability to borrow money, with what the federal government has been doing, there is a concern. We have, over the past 3 borrowing cycles, which I was not here for, but the CFO and the manager prior did a great job getting I believe it was 2%, 2.2% in that range. My fear is the next time we go out to bond, we're going to be lucky if we have 3% and possibly 5%. This is something that is beyond our control, and the only way that we can ensure that we're getting the best rate possible is to ensure that our reserves are there and we start to not rely on these one-time funds, which I've called a structural issue inside our budget. This, as many of you know, is not an easy discussion. Quite frankly, my phone hasn't stopped, and I'm sure your phone has not either. But truthfully, if we're trying to change the way we're doing business, if we want to increase the quality of life here in the city of Lowell, this is a hard decision. On top of that, we have what I've mentioned many times. We have plenty of openings, and maybe it's time for us to really consider doing that desk audit that I've talked about. Which jobs need to be funded, and simply which jobs do not. That may not make everybody happy, the department heads included. We have another leadership meeting coming up. I believe it's on the 7th of June. The first leadership meeting we discussed in a roundabout way. I think I might have been in for a week, but I can't stress enough that with the commissioner and the department heads and the people that have been here, they're ready to have these tough discussions. This is an extremely difficult discussion. I've been on that side of the table. I've made the call. I'm looking forward over the next 2 weeks to, once again, talking with you folks individually to find out what your ideas and how we get this completed. I'm excited in one way, but I can only imagine your phones, like I had stated earlier, are ringing just as much as mine. But if we truly want to change the way we're doing business and stop relying on one-time funds and discuss the paying class that I think is so vitally important, and talk about the firehouses and talk about the EMG reports, these are the discussions that we need to have. I thank each and every one of you for your time, because each and every one of you have been very, very generous with talking about where we want to go and how we want to tackle this. And I look forward over the next 2 weeks to meeting with you individually, or whatever the case may be, to have this final discussion to get this budget balanced on the books so we can start July 1st as a new day. So, thank you very much.
Any comment? Councilor Kishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Manager Golden and CFO Baldwin, thank you for the report. One thing that I wish was included in this report is when you look at it, you look at the rising cost piece, and you say you broke it down FY22, FY23 in increases. I wish there was a column that said percentage of increase, because it makes a lot of sense. When you look at some of these pension assessment, it went up 5.3%. You look at salaries and wages, 8.37%. Solids, waste, and recycling, 4.1. Greater Lowell assessment, 3.6. This one's the killer, and it gets me every time you look at this. The charter school, 13.6% it went up. And of the 38 million that the total budget went up, that percentage is 12.5% of the increase went just to the charter school. These things have to be curbed. When you look at insurance, and insurance used to be the driver in municipal government. That was always the one that went up the most, and it's middle of the pack or less. It's 6.27. Fuel, gas, 64.3% it went up. That's a driver. When you look at general government, 10.68% that went up. Public safety, 6.45%. Public Works, one of the least, and it's one of the ones we talk about the most in here, in the quality of life. It went up one of the least percentages, 4.68%. Human Services, 13% it went up. Culture and Recreation, 19.2%. And the one that went down, and I thank Connor for this one, is Debt Services is going in the other direction. It's going down. But when we start looking at this and we talk about middle management and training people so our capital planning looks a little bit better, it's a must, it's a need, it has to happen. We start looking at this thing and we're looking at salaries and wages. We have 82 openings. I guarantee we shouldn't have 82 openings. I guarantee 82 jobs are not needed. We should look at those in depth before we put forth any type of increase in this city. We should look at those. We have to look at those and come back with something that says, well, we needed this job at one time, but maybe we don't need it any longer. There's wants and there's needs. There's 82 of them. How long have them been vacant? And look at the longest ones and say, do we need it? Traffic engineer? Yes, we need it. But when you look at some of the others, I'm not so sure we need it, and the service didn't really go down. But it's hard to walk out of here and ask people for an increase when there's jobs that are open that are not needed. And there's some people, we looked at the water budget, and I looked at it again just as quickly as this thing was handed to me. We look at contractual cost. It's the same exact, and these guys don't want to go out and work at nighttime. So why do we have the same amount of employees over there? You look at the water budget again. You have a decrease in gas costs from FY21. I don't know how the gas and fuel is going to go down over there. So there are some things in here that just don't make sense to me, and I just think that I will spend the next 2 weeks looking at it, and I truly think that if we're going to ask for a raise in taxes, that all of us should commit to going department by department through this budget, like they used to do in the old days, and not look at a bottom line number and say, look, you know what? Here's the bottom line we think should be here, and start looking at things and spending the time. And at the beginning of the budget, I read I get $25,000. I can't wait to see that money. I don't get paid, but there's a number in here of $25,000 going to me. So some things have to be looked at, and we have to look at it seriously, because if you don't think the public's going to look at this budget book and analyze every single line, because my phone's rung off the hook, I don't know about everybody else in here. And all I had was the sheet here, and I have this book here tonight, but I think that we really seriously have to look at those 82 jobs, and we have to start looking at some things that just have to be dialed back. We can't just keep creating and creating and creating. We have to look and say, okay, what is the need? And one of the major needs when you look at that capital, the capital that we're looking at in the future, is middle management training, because I'm not sure anybody even understands what it costs for a vehicle down at the DPW yet. When you're putting $350,000 in there and you're telling me we're going to set up a brine system for $125,000, a temporary one, or a trial one for $125,000, I'm not even sure how you're going to put the side saddles on those trucks to spray the stuff with for that kind of money. So there's some things in here you're looking at saying, geez, I'm not sure you can even start what you have. So when everyone gets a chance to go through this, I think that there's going to be challenges, and we need to be serious about it. And again, Manager Golden, I thank you for being here for the month. This is not on you. This is on our middle management and our management team putting this forward. And I think we have to look stronger and question what they're putting forward. The police department, we've been talking about line painting. Put $30,000. That was their recommendation. Connor didn't cut it. That was their recommendation. We sat here and talked about this for 2 months, about getting lines painted, safety, safety, safety. $30,000. What they spent last year was $27,750. And prices have just gone up. They should at least come in and said, you know what, I need $100,000, and made you make that decision to say, we can't afford that right now. And I just think as we look through this, I think all of us in here are going to take a challenge to look at it and say, we need more here, or we need less here. So, and thank you for your time.
Any other comments? Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Manager. I did receive phone calls from the people. It's a hard pill to swallow, but I explained to the residents regarding what we need. And after a long discussion, this particular individual agrees that yes, that they're willing to see the increase in their property tax. However, they brought 2 points that I want to share with you, Mr. Mayor, and managers and the CFO. One is that the homeowners say we agree to the increase. However, we want to see our neighborhood improvement with their money. And then number two, they use the analogy as in their family. They say, okay, I teach my children, when you're not in the room, turn off the light, use less toilet paper, using less water if that's possible. So there are two things that they are asking. We are willing to the tax increase. However, we want to see our neighborhood improve based on the amount that the city will raise from their tax dollars. Number two, that the city institute cost-saving measures, within the city hall, cut down on the waste. If we could do that, to show that we are serious, we're not wasting the taxpayers' money. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my only comments that I would make on this is what's really kind of alarming, I think, about the entire process is that pension assessments up 1.6 million, health premiums are up, charter school reimbursement is up, personnel costs, solid waste, none of these are going away. I mean, I think that's the biggest reality in all of this, that this increase is really, it's just, we could cut here, we can cut a position there. We're not going to touch, a $1.6 million pension assessment increase. So, I mean, we'll, I think, do our due diligence. We'll go line by line. But these are really, I mean, maybe we can talk about ways that we can decrease our pension assessment. I don't know if that's something you could do. I'm just saying, these are the priorities right here. These are the big ticket items that are driving these increases. And that's just really alarming. It's just the cost right now of government, and we're in the middle of it. So thank you for your effort and for all of the hard work putting this together.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Manager, for the presentation. Thank you, CFO Baldwin. I think, again, we're going to have some difficult conversations, and I firmly believe some areas we might have to find a creative way to do more with less. Again, I think something that we all agree on, we have to get competitive in other areas to retain employees, as well as keep some of the priorities that we've heard loud and clear from the residents, such as no closures of fire stations. So it's definitely going to be a balancing act. I understand the 5.5% potential increase is going to be very impactful for a lot of our residents. But again, I think it's the time where we're going to have these conversations both as residents, community members, local government, and figure out where do we go. Are we willing to work together to move the city forward? And like Councilor Yem touched on, I think if we can stand behind any increase that the residents have to incur and show where the money's going and show these improvements and show the things that have been prioritized, I think we'll get through this. Thank you.
Councilor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I look forward to, in the coming weeks, having a more in-depth discussion on this proposed budget that we've been given. But for tonight, through you, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you, Mr. Manager, for presenting us with this bold choice that we have with the proposed budget. One thing I know that we hear as councilors is the desire for more and better city services, and those come at a cost. And as you mentioned, just to maintain the current level of service, and even most likely have to deal with cuts in a few areas if we were to move forward with what has been the standard 3.5% increase of recent years. And you've laid out the reasons why, from increased fixed costs to inflationary concerns. So I think this is a very important discussion to have. But as has been noted as well, in the past, we have been very modest in terms of our tax increases year over year. The city has built up a significant levy capacity over the years, and that's with the limitations that we've been under Proposition 2.5, which is a measure that is put in place to ensure relatively modest increases for municipalities. So even under the rules of Proposition 2.5, we have managed to build this excess levy capacity that has meant a very affordable tax burden over the years for the residents of this city, but it has also meant that we may need to play catch up at times to ensure that we're providing the services that our residents need and deserve. So I very much welcome this conversation. I very much look forward to the discussion on this bold choice we have moving forward, and I appreciate the opportunity to have it. I think it's a very good proposed budget, and look forward to more discussion at the budget hearing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Musia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we look at the budget, we would be thrilled if we could say to the taxpayer, we're not going to raise your taxes this year. But that's not realistic in today's world where everything is going up at a rapid pace. Just look at trying to fill your tank in your car. I'd like to find a place that I could even pay $3.97 a gallon. Now it's up to almost $5 pretty soon. Go to the supermarket. What you paid for standard prices on different items has sometimes, in some cases, doubled. It's It's beyond our control. And there are fixed costs like electricity, utilities, pensions, health insurance that we have to pay that has gone up, and we have no choice but to pay it. I would like to say that we can hire people and keep them in the city, but we can't even hire people because they pay more in other communities with less of a population and less demand of work. When you have a department that had 8 people, and through attrition and people retiring and sickness and vacation, and you're down to 3 people, that's a burden on the people that are working here. And it's easy to say, I want my street paved, I want this and that and everything else. But when you don't have the workers to do this, and I want the lines painted, and I want this, and I want that, and you don't have the crew, and you're not paying them what you think that they should be getting, it's a very complicated process. And it's easy to complain, and it's easy to say, well, they don't know what they're doing. They're useless. All they want to do is raise my taxes. We don't want to raise your taxes, but there's circumstances out there that we can't get past. We have to pay the bills. We made a commitment in the city to provide a pension, to provide insurance, and those prices go up, and we're stuck with that. Hot top, asphalt, everything has gone up. Look at the steel. We're waiting 9 months for the steel to arrive, and the cost of that is astronomical, and we have to pay more because of the pandemic, and there's so many factors, and you wouldn't know that unless you were sitting in our seats to know that we're not doing this to get you mad or angry. I don't want to raise your taxes. I'm raising my own. I pay taxes too, but you gotta make a choice. You can't demand and want, and we just snap our fingers and you're gonna get it. We need the help. We need to pay them a decent wage. We need to be competitive. I'm sorry that we don't. We're a large city. We have a lot of demands, and yet we put a lot on our people. We put a lot on our employees. And I'm not going to squawk about it when I know what has to be done. I'm going to have to bite the bullet, and I'm going to have to do what I personally feel is right. That's my comments.
Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everyone here and people at home too all recognize that we are living in a very difficult time. Families, community, city, state, country are hurt. We also recognize that, as Councilor Mercier indicated, that there's a lot of fixed costs that's not fixed, it's increased due to, the time we live in. It's difficult for, some of us can afford this increase that other could not. Like everyone here already got called. And the next 2 weeks, we're gonna get more call. And even after this done, we're going to get more call. It's a difficult choice. With all this fixed cost increase, we know that, as CFO Carnivallens brought up, some of the increase that we have to pay, and that 3.5% increases maybe just for that alone to keep things going. That said, we also have to look at, quality of life for people, better service, and so on. So the next 2 weeks really incumbent on us to look, line by line on this budget and to see where can be cut. Maybe we don't need all these 82 positions to be, filled. Maybe we do, but where can we cut to help so that we don't, go to taxpayer for that proposed tax increase that the managers have proposed, 5.5. If we can do less than that and still provide those quality of life to people, then it's our responsibility to do that. I plan to, sit down and talk to people out there in the community, hear what they have to say, and come back, and we're going to have discussion, after this is hashed out with the public, meeting on this. Again, I want to thanks. I know Manager Golden, came on. This is not even a month yet, and so it's not easy for Manager Golden or any head of department to say, I want you to increase this much. So I know you on the other side, on this side before too, Manager Golden. So I want to thank you for put this report together for us with the huge help from CFO Connor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one more question through you to the city manager or the CFO. As far as the high school debt coming online, what percentage of that or dollar amount is included in this budget, like at this point in time?
Through Mr. Manager to Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's an excellent question, Councilor. So to date, as we sit here today, we've issued 3 separate bond issues to finance the local share of the construction on the high school. We are poised to sell another $20 million in August, and as the city manager mentioned in his remarks, we're trying to issue debt ahead of what we're expecting and what we're being advised by our financial advisors as a series of several rate increases by the Federal Reserve. And so once we sell the $20 million, we'll be at just under $60 million total sold of the local share. So if we walk back to what the local share is, right now it's about $165.9 million. And so after we issue the debt in August, we'll be at about 36% issued. And just to put some numbers to what it means, the difference in an interest rate, if we were to sell that $20 million at a 3% interest rate, that interest over the life of the bond's just over $10 million, $10.7 million. If that rate was 5%, the interest on that bond would be $19.2 million. So it's an increase of about $8.5 million over the life of the bond. So it is real dollars that we're talking about. That is part of our strategy, but it's just under $60 million to answer your question directly.
Thank you.
Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here with the budget the first time and quickly going through it, it seems Mr. Manager, you've taken more of a proactive approach, where so many budgets in the past have been reactive. I do think that's a positive. With that being said, with the increase, I'm sure we'll take the time in a couple of weeks to go through it and to see what, if any, moves can be made to lessen the burden. But what I guess I would say, and happy about in a tough scenario, is all the non-controllable things that the CFO is dealing with, the things that charter schools and costs and fuel, and the perfect example you just gave, Connor, about going from 10 million to 19 million if we don't act now. So I would hope that everybody goes through the budget, not just the small stuff, but the big stuff as well, to see what we could be dealing with in the future. Again, if we continue to take the reactive approach that has put us in this situation over the course of probably the past 4 or 5 budgets that I've been a part of as well. So I'm looking forward to the conversation over the next couple of weeks and the public hearing on the 7th. Thank you.
Councilor Yam.
Just a quick question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. CFO and the city manager. The increase, yes, if you could maybe simplify it so the people at home watching, what are we talking about? 5.5% translating into the per month on the tax bill, real estate tax bill. Just simplify it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Through Mr. Manager to Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the councilor. If your tax burden was, just say, $4,000, and I'm just using at 3%, you're talking about $120 increase in your taxes, and annually. That's correct. So at 3%, you'd be talking about $120 at 5%, and I'm leaving the half out. At 5%, you're talking about $200. So what we're looking at is if people believe the budget in the sense of keeping the lights on, if you would, status quo, not trying to do these other pieces, and taking into consideration what the councilors are talking about with the desk audit that we discussed, then 3.5% is the number to increase. As uncomfortable as that is, and that's a very, very uncomfortable piece. But to your point, once again, you can take any number you want in regards to a $300,000 home, and you're talking, a $3,000, I apologize, a $3,000 tax levy or a $4,000 tax levy. What we're trying to really say is it's a 2% more than the norm. And I'd be glad, because I know we have started putting some of this together, and I always hated using the average, right?
Yes.
So, if you're paying $5,000, it's going to be $150 approximately to keep the lights on. Under this proposal, it'd be more, obviously, under the 5%. So it's not an easy thing. We can break it down for people per their home. We can always put out the average single home value, which is in the 360 range. Right. We could run those numbers for folks. But me personally, I always like to just take it, what's a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 home, $600,000 home, and so on and so forth, and have those discussions further, which I could have to everybody for their edification, if that'd be helpful.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, Mr. Manager. It's for me particularly because when I go and I'm in real estate, so people will ask me. So I want to be able to say, the increase that the manager proposing at 5.5 compared to what you pay now, it's about, say, $10, $20 a month, things
sure,
like that.
Yeah.
So make it simple, appeal for people to swallow,
And once again, Counselor, if people do believe, and once again, this desk audit that I would like to propose, it's, to really dig down to find out with these 80-plus jobs, to find out if they're needed, how badly are they needed, is it a desire, is it a want. We did put this in to the budget because, once again, in speaking to a lot of the department heads, they're talking about, hey, I'm still down one person, 2 people, 3 employees, so on and so forth. It's happening in my own office. So I'll gladly, we'll put something together which maybe be able to share with some of the folks,
Yeah,
if that helps.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one last comment, that the people who work in the tax office, they short staff, and there's a lot of questions regarding, why we wait so long and things like that. So we probably need to look into some of the short staff in critical department. Tax collection is a very important. So because they're the one that really take care of the tax bill for people who personally appears at the city hall. So if we were to ask them for increase, please give me, enough people that can help,
Right.
can help the people, the residents.
And Counselor, to your point exactly, I'm hearing it from, I'm not picking on any department in general, but from parking to treasurer's office, to the clerk's office, to the assessor's office, you know, pick one. And everyone continues to ask, what about this and what about that? Oh, you know, when we're talking about employees. And then we also have the other problem where some employees have been out, or some job descriptions have been out, and it's not that people don't want to work here. We have great people, we have wonderful employees, we really do. But when somebody else is offering in the double digit, in some instances, percentually higher offers, we're not even coming in second in some aspects, we're coming in third when people are deciding to work here. And that's a challenge, and you know, I will take this budget on, and we had this discussion about this, or most of us have had this discussion, but I think what we need to discuss in the future is the performance management tools. We talked about educating and investing in our employees and investing in our middle managers, but you know, I do think it's going to be time to have this performance piece and let folks know that metrics will be talked about. This isn't just coming, and you know, if the study does come through where I believe we're correct, quite honestly, we still need to hire the Collins Center or somebody like that. But just calling around to the managers that I know that in this area, I have a fairly clear understanding of what employees are getting paid. But I'm willing to talk to the Collins Center and you know, get it verified.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilor Murcia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, I know you weren't here then, but maybe Connor would remember that someone in the past, when we talked about the increase in taxes, they gave a rundown of everybody's property here, and they did that assessment as to how much more it would cost per each individual home on the council. Do you remember that?
Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Mercier, I believe what you're referring to is what we would do before we set the tax rate in the fall. And it is common, and certainly my recollection from years past, is that prior to setting the tax rate, because that's the time of year when we have the values of the homes set, so we know, you know, the values for homes are set as of January 1 of each year. And so while we can do that we can certainly do that for the council for informational purposes, I would just offer the disclaimer that those values are based on the last year. And so those values will increase, and what we've seen in the market is that residential home values have increased anywhere from 7, 8, 9, 10%. And so that would compound any increase to taxes. And so while we're happy to provide the information, we could certainly do that for the public hearing. I just want to offer that disclaimer that you know, there is this other function of the tax formula that is subject to change as the assessors are completing their valuations.
And how close are we to the levy? Are we safe?
Currently, right now, we are pretty far from the levy. We have approximately $18 million of levy capacity. So, honest and truly, what has happened over the years past, and once again, having been part of an elected organization or a board, this stuff is not easy. The clarity of what the 2.5, and I know because people have been asking me about this, that's 2.5%. We are not allowed to go over 2.5% if we were at our tax levy limit. And if I can give you an example, we have some towns, local towns, I don't want to call them out, but every year, no matter what happens, they go up 2.5%. Their tax levy limit is virtually zero. So if they are looking to spend additional money, they would have to go for an override. And that happens in some towns in this area. We would not have to go for an override because we still have what I would say is $18 million of monies that we haven't taxed. If that,
sure, that's
yeah, the tax levy,
yeah.
you know, that's the tax levy piece.
Good, thank you.
No other comments or questions that wraps up the motion responses and the informational on the budget presentation. Now I need a motion to accept and place on file by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor Jeunesse. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to 6.3, communication. Planning Board recommendation on proposed zoning amendment to rezone parcels at 89 Agawam Street from TSF to TTF zoning district. Motion to accept and place on file by Councillor Gishia, second by Councillor Nguyen. We discussed this earlier in the public hearing, item 4.1. This will be referred to the public hearing, Mr. Clerk? It's all set. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to 6.4, communication. Resignation of Anne Marie Straipo Porter from Council on Aging. Motion to accept and place on file by Councillor Nguyen, second by Councillor Yam. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to the vote from the city manager, Councillor Rook.
Can we bundle? Oh,
okay. Motion by Councillor Nguyen to bundle the vote.
I would bundle, Mr. Mayor, I would bundle 7.1 through 7.6, as those are just straight votes.
Okay. Motion by Councillor Nguyen to bundle the vote 7.1 through 7.6, second by Councillor Rook. I'm going just to read the brief description, starting with 7.1. Vote, accept timely submission of the budget. 7.2, do you still need to read the title, or
nope,
just write title? 7.2, vote, accept, expend 200,000 Mass Development Cultural Facilities Fund, CCF Capital Grant. 7.3, vote, accept, expend fiscal year 23 earmarked funds, 200,000, Cambodia Town Archway. 7.4, vote, accept, expend fiscal year 23 earmarked funds, 25,000, Downtown Lowell. 7.5, vote, accept, expend fiscal year 23 earmarked funds, 700,000, Centralville and Pawtucketville. The last one that was bundled is 7.6, vote, endorse the 5-year capital plan. That was the last one. Motion by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor Drinkwater. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please. Or any discussion on any of the items? Councillor Rook?
I'll defer to Councilor Robinson for now.
Councillor Robinson?
I would just like to thank City Manager Golden. We talked about this at the Centerville Neighborhood Group. The earmarked 700,000 for Centerville and Pawtucketville. It's people are excited over there, and it's a great step in the right direction. It's something that we've been hearing loud and clear for quite some time. Potential splash park, gathering space. I like the idea that was thrown at me by DPD. Try to break up some heat islands, change the water structure locations around. So again, something like this is great. Thank you very much. The residents are appreciative.
Councillor Rook and then Councillor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, to echo Councilor Robinson's statements. It's exciting news for the Pawtucketville neighborhood, and I know there's been some initial discussion on what that money will be used for over at Fowler McGuire. You know, there's been a couple of neighborhood meetings that had discussion about it as well. And I know I spoke to you know, Commissioner McCall about this. When could the money be, I guess, used? When it will be accepted and used? And the plans that are in place, you know, are those hard and fast that they're done and we're just waiting for an RFP process or so forth? Or is there something that way that maybe the city will come out again to the neighborhood group to go over what's being proposed and accept any suggestions or opinions?
Mr. Manager, to Ms. McCall.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Through you to the council. We are divvying it up, the earmark for these two neighborhoods, in half, and so we're planning on investing $350,000 in a splash pad for Centerville. There was a recent motion by Councilor Robinson that we're planning to respond too, that shows our plan, and then some additional improvements at the park that we think it makes the most sense to have in Centerville. We would love, ideally, to go out to procure sort of in the winter to do that next year, but we have some other ideas that we want to do for the park, so it may be larger in scale, and so may be pushed out another additional year. But for the Father Maguire, what we're looking to do is, resurfacing the courts and fields, repainting. We need to get on I forget the name of the company, it's Vermont something. We need to start talking to them now so that we can do that early next year. So that's ideally our goal, is so next year that you'll start to see some activity at these two locations.
Which, in particular, I guess,
Yep.
when do we expect a plan to be completed, a design, I should say, I'm sorry, a design to be completed to say, hey, look, this is where we're going to appropriate the money to? And the only reason why I ask, because it's dominated this discussion over particular for some reason, is pickleball, right? And I just tonight being here and this vote coming on, 4 or 5 messages about it, it really is, and I know that our former state rep, Tom Golden, dealt with this as well. And it really is something that has kind of, taken over the Father Maguire Park aspect of resurfacing one of the courts. So whoever wants to take that one, I'll hand it off.
I think we'll need a month or so to formalize a plan and talk to get numbers from the contractor. We do have pickleball courts at Shed and at South Common. I actually did see, when I was down on the Cape, they have pickleball on the tennis courts, and they have all the nets up, right? Whereas right now, the way pickleball is, you have to go to the rec department to get the nets to get them installed. So,
Commissioner,
we'll
you have
put
no
together-
idea, right? And Tanya, so I would just,
We'll put together
I would
plans
suggest
and
that one of the tennis courts be done into it, just, stored away and just so you have it. I think if you came to a meeting without it,
We'll
get some stuff,
we'll
yeah.
get something together and try to get in front of the neighborhood group. I'll say end of summer, beginning of fall, just because we have some active park projects that we're trying to procure and get out this summer. So
$500 million budgets and pickleball, right? Yeah, so thank you very much.
Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this council, the resident of all this neighborhood, thanks Manager Golden and then Rap Golden, Rap Banner Howard, and Rap Ratty Mom for all this earmark. I'm sure they appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Just for clarification, the bundle on the vote was from the 7.1 through 7.5 only. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Yam.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Councilor Getchia.
Yes.
Councilor Janice.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy. Yes. Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
11 yeas.
The next few line items are the votes to refer to public hearing, starting with 7.6 and 7.7. We already taken up 7.8, but it continues, the public hearing, referring to the public hearing continues to 8.1 through 9.6. So would like a motion to bundle all these items to refer them to public hearing by Councilor. Even though we're bundling, we still can talk on it, just like the other one. So motion by Councilor Gishia, second by Councilor Robinson. Let me read the brief description down the line. 7.6, vote endorse the 5-year capital plan. 7.7, vote fiscal year 23 appropriation order. Skipping to 8.1, loan order, capital plan loan order. 8.2, loan order, Grand Manor judgment. 9, ordinances from the city manager. 9.1, ordinance amend sewer rate fiscal year 23. 9.2, ordinance amend water rate fiscal year 23. 9.3, ordinance create new position, DPD energy advocate. 9.4, ordinance create new position, DPW facilities and infrastructure project manager. 9.5, ordinance create new position, fire assistant chief. The last one is 9.6, ordinance create new position, HR generalist. Any comments or question on any of the items?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Oh.
Councilor Janess?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to Councilor Gitcher for stepping on you there. I just wanted to mention that I will not be participating in 7.7 due to my conflict of interest with my wife working in the law department. After speaking to Solicitor O'Connor earlier, we both agreed that it was best that I stay away from that one tonight. And so I just wanted to make that note before we voted on anything. Thank you.
It'll be noted in the minutes as well, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments? Councilor Gitcher and Councilor Murcia?
Thank you. On 7.6, the endorsing the 5-year capital plan, to me, the capital plan is not very well thought out. When you look at it, you start looking at some of the goals and objectives that we have. And again, this goes back to when we talked about this back in February about bringing us an equipment list and trying to figure out what exactly we have, what are the replacement costs. We talked to a fire chief, he comes in and says, okay, we need a ladder truck, we appropriate a ladder truck, and it takes 2 years to get that. So on the back side of this, when you're looking at there's fire trucks needed, what is the length of time it's going to take? So I could be, putting things out there that are going to take longer to even come in, so I could actually appropriate the money for other things and get them or move them up in the system and try to get them earlier. But when I look at the DPW and we're starting to talk about brining systems and using those trucks, one 10-wheeler with a salter with brining on it will cost you well over $250,000. So this has no plan to me. This is just a number tossed out there that's just a placeholder in the first year. In the out years, I understand what placeholders mean, and we're just throwing money out there, but there's really no thought. There's nothing put into this. We look at the Parks Department, and we're looking at $100,000 in equipment. How old is the equipment over there? What are we talking about? So I truly think when we start talking about equipment, we should start listing it, and I know it's on the manager's plate right now because he took over for the lack of getting it back 2 months ago. That we would have an honest discussion right now. If we had it back a few months ago, we could actually understand what's down there. But in addition to that, when you ask a person to appropriate funding, they should be able to see what they're talking about. So in the first few years of any capital plan, when you start talking about equipment, normally you list truck X, it's a 2015 and the bed's rotted out of it and this and that. And normally you offer the people who are going to vote on things to go look at these vehicles that are going away so that they can put eyes on something and say, yeah, it's deteriorated. Okay, yes, we can vote on these things. Just throwing numbers out there as placeholders without having an actual experience on what we're talking about or what we have for equipment even means nothing. And when you're looking at it, it's all underfunded. There is no way. Most communities are around $750,000 to $1.5 million in DPW equipment yearly. We're at $250, and we were just sinking. And if we would have done this 3 or 4 years ago, our equipment would have been in great shape. We would have paid a lot less money, and we would be moving forward. And now you're taking on all of these issues that you're looking at because somebody wanted to say, I got money in a rainy day account. Okay, my bond rating's here, but I truly can't put this on the tax base, so great. I understand you put $4.1 million away last year, but now lumber, that same 8-foot piece of lumber, for the same money, you can only buy 2 feet of it. So what did that do for us? Now we're going to pay 4 times the amount for something that we could have fixed years ago. And the same things with the equipment. When you start looking at equipment costs, if you're lucky to get one of these vehicles, it's going to take a year and a half. I just ordered a Toro lawnmower. It's 1 year out. So that's the problem now. And when I'm looking at these numbers, they're not even close. You can't buy a Toro lawnmower, the same one that we discussed, Mr. Manager, the 5910, the diesel one that goes across the city every day. We have 2 of them, but one's broken down. We can't even get across the city in it, and we should have one for each side of the river so that we don't have to keep going across for efficiency and we'd save the time. So when you're looking at these numbers, you can't even buy those pieces of equipment, so we're already upside down, and we can't take care of the fields that each one of us on this council is complaining about. I just think that these capital plans are garbage placeholders that are just underfunded just to look at, and they need to be looked at and seriously taken into account, especially equipment costs. Thank you.
Councilor Murcia?
Mr. Mayor, When were all these public hearings? I didn't get the date. Next week?
This is June 7 at 7 p.m., Mr. Clerk.
Yes.
All of them that you just said, all of the public hearings? Okay, thank you.
Any other, Councilor Yan?
Just a quick question, maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager and city solicitor. 8.2, the loan order grand manor judgment. Do we know when we need to pay the judgment? Will there be sufficient money to pay? So that's the question regarding 8.2, the grand manor judgment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Manager, through Mr. Manager to Madam Solicitor.
Thank you. Counselor, we are awaiting a judgment to issue. However, working with the manager and the CFO, this puts us, and to the council, would put us in a position that when that happens, we would then have the funds to satisfy the judgment.
Any ballpark timeline?
I would have frankly anticipated it at this point. I would say that, shortly, probably within the next 30 days, although it's hard to predict exactly what the court's calendar would be.
Right. And then my last question, and I just want to be sure that we sufficient not to come back to the city or taxpayer, for additional, because the judgment is more than we anticipated. So.
Madam Solicitor, not talking about the judgment itself and the money would probably be the best thing to do at this time, I would think. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Not talking about the actual finances or the money at this time? We don't know necessarily what the courts are going to come back with. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
Right. We have a very good understanding as to what that final number is. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through manager and Madam Solicitor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Through you to the manager. With the 5-year, the vote for the 5.76, what would happen if we delayed that for a week, just so we can take a better look at it?
Mr. Manager? Through Mr. Manager to Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to your question, the vote is procedural. It is an endorsement of the plan as it's laid forth. The appropriation and the funding of the capital plan is only for those projects listed in FY2023. The remainder of the table, and I believe what Councilor Gittier was referring to, is for planning purposes only. It is an exercise, and it's a best practice in municipal finance. But the table, which is what is being asked to be endorsed, is something that we would refer to accompany the loan order, but the loan order is only funding the FY2023 projects.
Okay.
So as far as a delay or a reluctance to vote, it has no bearing on the funding of those projects proposed for FY2023.
So it's work in progress, basically? Kind of a work in progress?
Well,
Mr. Baldwin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would argue that the capital plan in and of itself is always a work in progress. It is something that every year we solicit requests from the departments. So all of these, the pricing, the projects themselves, are all submitted by department heads, and they prioritize pursuant to it. And as the council is able to review the capital plan document, the criteria, selection criteria, is based on a number of factors. And so those are all submitted from the departments into finance, and they are prioritized, matched up with our funding capacity for the year. Those are the projects that make it into FY2023. However, there are projects that are submitted by departments that are multi-year, paving, for example, whereby the city engineer's office will ask for a certain amount in the current year, but due to a variety of reasons, capacity, staffing, ability to get vendors under contract, there are requests for the out years to match future funding from either the Chapter 90 formula or for other funding sources. So it is there for planning purposes. It is there for the council to understand what the future needs are financially for the city as it relates to capital.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question, Councilor.
Yeah.
Thank
You all set, Councilor Leahy? Councilor Gishia?
You know, when I look at the FY23 also, it looks to me, and it's not you, it's department heads, that are throwing darts at a board without even doing any research on anything. And you're looking at the numbers, and they make absolutely no sense in the industry. And they haven't for years. So if this is the request, and this is what's being put forward, we're okaying request, then I would agree with you that there are problems within this, that you just put forward what was requested. But there are major problems in whoever's putting these numbers forward. They're not within the industry's cost. So we're just going to sit on funding or have to take it from somewhere else just to satisfy a need, or we're buying pieces of equipment that will not satisfy the long-term needs of the city. And that's the truth. When you look at the numbers, you can't buy the things you need for the funding that's put there.
Councilor Rourke?
Yeah, so getting back to 23, so the $500,000 for City Hall bathrooms, that's not enough money? I'll give you an example. I mean, obviously someone came to you and said, I need $500,000 for bathrooms, right? I mean, that seems like, I'm not an expert, more than enough money for me to take care of the two bathrooms. I mean, they're in horrible shape, but I mean, the money for 23 is what we need to bear down on here, right? Because that's the money that's going to be appropriated in this fiscal budget. The next 4 years is what it is, right? That's, again, hopefully a goal to be attained. 24 we'll deal with next year. 25 we'll deal with in 24. I mean, it's been the way we've done it since we started this. So, if there's something, if you want to go back to the department heads in the next 2 weeks, Mr. Manager, to make sure that these numbers between project 2023-1 to 19 are correct, that'd be fine with me. But I'm glad that was explained, the following 4 years, what they're there for. Thank you.
Through Mr. Manager to Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to address your point, Councilor Rourke, for the City Hall bathrooms, that is a project that has been designed. And so there was money appropriated, and this is sometimes much like the MSBA process, and we've learned to model that because it is a very effective way to finance capital projects. We first finance a feasibility study, and so that's when we have engineers and architects design and put together a cost estimate, and then we ask for the funding for the construction component. So forgive me, I forget the name of the design firm that put it together, but this is a real cost. And so that funding that's being requested here will fund the contract for construction for that project.
All these 19 projects are based on hard estimates and what it would cost to get it completed?
I will offer that they are not all at the same level of we have a bid ready to go, or we're at 100% design. But if they're in FY23 for funding, they are they're ready to go.
All right. Thank you.
No other comments or question? Need a motion to refer these bundle items to public hearing on June 7, 2020, 7 p.m.
I had a question.
Councilor Robinson?
For the public hearing portion, can we at least get, the browning equipment, will we get a copy of what piece of equipment exactly are you looking for, what the cost? Vehicle replacement, like Councilor Gitchia said, will we get at least an idea of what equipment you're looking to purchase? Because as you just said, these projects funded and looking for funding for FY23 should be ready to go, so that shouldn't be a problem, I'd imagine then, right?
Through Mr. Manager to Mr. Baldwin.
Within the packet was an abbreviated version of the capital plan. What is before you tonight in your book, especially for those projects in FY2023, is a more comprehensive description of each one of the projects proposed for funding. So as it relates to pieces of equipment, in a lot of cases, they're going to buy those off the state contract. And so there won't, we have to abide by procurement law. And so we can't, and I'm not sure this is what you're asking, Counselor, but we couldn't say we're going to buy this specific piece of equipment because we put it out to bid and then, either whatever's on the state contract that's available to the department or whatever is the low bid on the procurement. Those things are subject to change. To Councilor Gitchier's point, sometimes that works against us where we think it's going to be a certain price, and that's what is estimated in even the architectural drawings or forgive me, the estimate put forward, sometimes we put it out to bid, and the price that we get, we've seen this very much so recently, and we've talked about this a number of times in this council chamber, we're seeing prices much higher than even what our experts are telling us are the estimates. So to answer your question, we do have more detail included in the capital plan document. I would invite the council to review that, and if there is an additional information, please contact me. We'll get you whatever you need.
Thank you. And we will have the department heads present for the public hearing.
That's correct, Councilor. They'll all be here for budget night for questioning.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, hearing none, motion to refer to public hearing on June 7, 2022 by Councilor Yam, second by Councilor Nguyen. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is passed. We now go to 10. Mr. Clerk?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on a note of that public hearing, that's going to be set up as a special meeting because we're on the summer schedule then, and that's not part of the regularly scheduled event for the summer schedule, June 7th. So it'll be a special meeting just specifically for all these items that have been referred to that date.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We now go to 10, reports of the subcommittee. 10.1, Economic Downtown Development Subcommittee, May 24, 2022. The report, please, Mr. Chairman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, early tonight, the Economic and Downtown Development Subcommittee met. The committee members, Councilor Kim Scott, Councilor Wayne Jeunesse, also in attendance, Councilor Rita Musier. Joining us from the department, we have the Assistant City Manager, Director of DPD, Christian McCall, and Senior Planners, Francis Siciliano. Join us in this is agenda for the meeting was regarding business home occupation zoning in response to Councilor Leahy motion. With regard to the home occupations as right, we know that under the zoning code sections 3.3.3 home occupation as of right. Currently, we only allow one home occupation in a single address or on a lot. So given what's going on now with COVID and all that, DPD have indicated to us that they, receiving a number of phone calls from a small entrepreneur who's actually manage internet-based businesses and or a consultant. Those group will be benefited from being able to hold multi-businesses certificate on a single address. That means that that home, there's no sign saying that, they offer this or that, no customer visit and all that. So basically just to be able to go to the bank and create an account to have just more than one, certificate in that home. So I think earlier when Councilor Drinkwater brought the motion, Councilor Musier was concerned about that. But after heard respond tonight, Councilor Musier said it's not a problem. If home occupations by permit, then you have to get special permit from Zoning Board of Appeal. The resident would notify, and you can come. The resident who doesn't want that to happen can come and speak for or against those. But this is not the case. So what happened is motions was made by Councilor Kim Scott and second by Councilor Jeunesse to remove limitation of business certificate at a single address. That certainly will benefit those who are internet providers, like, and there's a number of things here: real estate appraiser, accountant, or bookkeeper, who do those work at home now. A lot of them do that, so it benefit them greatly. So the motion was made by to recommend to this full council to remove the limitation on a single address to get certificate, and second by Councilor Chines, and that is the recommendation. And maybe council can, do we do that in a form of motion right now here by Councilors Kim Scott and second by Councilor Chines, and leave it up to the mayor, to the full council to support it. That's the report, Mr. Mayor.
Just a quick.
Any other comments, Councilor Yang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councilor Noon and maybe Ms. McCall. The type of business that would be allowed at that, there has to be a limitation, right? You can't have a soup, like selling food or anything like that, right? That's right?
Ms. McCall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the council. What we're proposing to change, it does not, you can't sell food out of your home, you can't produce client trips, student trips, you can't have customers. It's really for people who are working from home. So there'd be no signage, no customers.
I understand that, but there's a limitation, a certain type of business that would be allowed in that home from that address. You already touched upon two things, that no sign, no customer, but what type of business that would be permitted?
So a home occupation business is defined by an activity customarily carried on by the permanent resident of a dwelling. Inside the dwelling unit requiring only customary home or hobby type equipment. And then we have a list of exclusions, which is sale of articles of produced elsewhere, storage of materials, motor vehicle, repair, landscaping, contractor yard. So home occupation, by definition, is for people who are working exclusively from their home. And so what we're proposing is to support sort of this rise in internet-based businesses, digital businesses, but also to support, business folks that have been around for a long time, make it easier for, we're in a new world, people are working from home. So if someone came to us to open a restaurant, they wouldn't be under home occupation. That would, the traditional zoning and whether or not, what zoning district it was in, that would come into play. So for home occupation, it's for a very specific type of business, not all business. Sure.
No other comments or question. Need a motion to adopt the motion of the subcommittee and to adopt the report as a report of progress by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We have approximately 13 minutes. We have 3 petitions and 18 motions left. Let's see if we can finish all of them quickly. I'm going to read through these items really quickly. If you need to make a comment, please do the jumping jack to get my attention. Starting with petition 11.1, claim of property damage. Motion to refer to Law Department for report and recommendation by Councilor Drinkwater, seconded by Councilor Gishia. On favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 11.2, miscellaneous. Charles Cafasius request installation of no parking from here to corner. Sign at corner of Mount Vernon and Varney Street. Motion to refer to traffic engineer for report and recommendation by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Mercia. On favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 11.3, miscellaneous. Pineapple Realty Trust, LLC. Attorney John Cox requests extending light industry zone into residential zone at 128 Maple Street. Motion to refer to Law Department for report. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I'd just like to speak on this one. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'll just leave it right now with a comment. I've received many complaints about this property. The owner and work that's been done on this site, on this property, and several others that he owns. I really was, debating whether or not to vote at all, even to send it to legal, because I've had so many neighbors concerned. But I did decide that I am voting in favor of it, mainly because I do think the end use will be better than what is there right now on the residential area that is under the power lines, which has been in the past homeless camps. If you drive under the Lincoln Street Bridge, it's filled with graffiti and a dumping site for people. So that is why I'm voting in favor, but I just want to make sure that the residents understand that, because they definitely had concerns, but at the end of the day, I think this is in their best interest. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment, Councillor. Motion to refer to Law Department for report and recommendation and draft ordinances by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Rourke. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. We now go to Section 12, City Council motion. Again, we have 18 motions and we have 11 minutes. These are well-written motions, and I believe that the manager's administration would welcome phone calls. If you feel that you need to explain in detail about each of these motions, if I could make suggestions, that you can call the city manager office tomorrow to explain in detail how you would like the motion to be responded. That would be great. I'm going to start with 12.1. Councilor Gishia requests city manager have the property department update the city council on a time frame of replacement of the gas line at the end of Marshall Avenue between West 4th Street. Also update on restoration of the natural areas that were disturbed by the construction of the gas line, i.e. replacement of the trees and natural settings. Well, when Councilor Gishia, second by Councilor Rourke. On favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carry.
Mr. Mayor, I understand the need to get out of here, but there are a couple of comments on certain motions, and this is one of them, if possible.
This is one.
Yeah.
Did you raise your
I don't
hand?
know if
Second.
Councilor Gitcho was talking about it first, but with regard to some of the gas lines and water mains that the city has in place right now, there's one over in Pawtuckaville as well, Woodward Ave, that was scheduled to be, I believe, done in April of this past year that I don't believe has been started yet. And someone had called me based on this motion that Councilor Gitche filed, asking for an update of, I think there was maybe 4 or 5 of them that we passed last September, October, that was scheduled to be done April and May of this year. I can get you a list, Commissioner McCaw, if you like, but I know that Woodward Ave was definitely one of them. It's also, again, it was a water main break from a couple of years ago. Supposed to get in there, fix it up again, and then repave the street and so forth. So, I will give you a call tomorrow and give you the 4 or 5 locations, but that was definitely one of them. Thank you.
Seems like an urgent matter. If the manager could provide the report as soon as possible, would be great. Councilor Gishia.
Thank you, Councilor Rourke, for slowing down the meeting for a minute. The gas company is the worst company that works in this city. They run in our neighborhoods and they run over everything. If you go down that area, what they did to that area, clear cutting, is the worst treatment to open area you could ever do for people down there. And I get that they put these things forward and stuff, but there should be some plan to revegetate the area and make it what it was once before. They displace all wildlife down there. They just cut through, and it's an awful setting to do. They do it in their road work. When they come here for their road work, they'll adhere to the state when they're on state roads, but our policies are weak, and we don't follow what the state follows, so our roads get torn apart, and it's awful. We should have in place the same exact treatment to our roads as the state has for their roads. If they can do it on a state road, our roads mean just as much to us as the state roads mean. And it's the same thing every single time with them. They should not be digging in our streets after November 15th to April. And those are just my thoughts, because this is the work we do, and the National Grid just gets away with anything they want, and they just tore into that neighborhood. And you should go take a look and listen to the neighbors down there who are very upset at what they did with the natural setting at the end of their roads.
No other comments. The motion was passed. We now go to 12.2. Councilor Gishia requests city manager provide an update to the council regarding the Latcher Park. Second by Councilor Nguyen. No comments. All in favor,
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I do have a comment.
Councilor Rourke, the purpose is
I know, I'm not
to
killing you. I get it.
the
I know.
report
Yeah.
back.
So, obviously, there was a motion filed a few weeks ago with Councilor Scott and I, where I know the tour was completed, and you were going to sit down with President Meehan and come back to us, hopefully with some sort of more information than last time. Is any update on that? Do you expect an executive session or a vote to be taken in a relatively near future?
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Obviously, I don't like to get to motions ahead of schedule, but those discussions have happened, and I'm waiting on President Meehan and their organization to have a further discussion on their potential thoughts. You could call an offer or whatever the case may be. So that's still, it is definitely a work in progress, and those discussions have been happening since we last met.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I think at this point I'm working against myself. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Right, 12.3, Councillor Gishia requests City Manager provide the City Council with an inventory of city-owned vehicles that have a purchase price of over $25,000. Include in report the year, make, model, age, expected replacement year, and projected cost of the vehicle at the time of purchase. Councillor Gishia speaks for herself. Thank you. Second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 12.4, Councillor Gishia requests City Manager update the City Council on the plans for maintenance workers at Lowell High School. Second by Councillor Nguyen. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Thank you. 12.5, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Gishia requests City Manager address the ongoing issues with City Ball field maintenance. No other comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We're doing great. 12.6, Councillor Robinson requests City Council begin discussions on establishing a fund out of the Mayor's office that will allow the City of Lowell to make contributions to community groups that are performing flag raisings, community celebrations, and dedications at City Hall. Second by Councillor Mosier. Councillor Robinson.
This was one that we discussed briefly early on, and I think, should this go, you think, subcommittee possibly? Maybe send it off to a subcommittee for more discussion once with this?
One for refer to appropriate subcommittee. Mr. Clerk, no other comments? All in favor say aye. With the finance? I say appropriate, but it could be finance.
Finance subcommittee, please.
Finance, okay. Refer to the finance subcommittee. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carried. All right. 12.7, Councillor Robinson requests City Council begin discussions on requesting from the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission to be one of the 12 host communities allowed to take part in a 3-year pilot program allowing a licensed cannabis cafe. Second by Councillor Leahy. Councillor Robinson.
Self-explanatory.
Thank you. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 12.8, Councillor Robinson requests City Manager have proper department look into updating, markings, or any other possible traffic calming measures in the area of Barker and Building Streets. Second by Councillor Gishia. No comment. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 12.9, Councillor Robinson requests City Manager have proper department provide an update on wall at McPherson Park. Second by Councillor Drinkwater. No comment. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 12.10, Councillor Robinson requests City Manager have proper department provide an update regarding VFW project and if there is still plans to incorporate trees for sound mitigation measures. Second by Councillor Yam. No comment. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 12.11, Councillor Robinson requests City Manager work with the city and school unions, the public school community, PTO organizations, and volunteer organizations to put together an all-hands-on-deck cosmetic task force with the goal to update schools and facilities identified in need of painting and or cosmetic upgrades over summer break. Second by Councillor Scott. No comment. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Motion 12.12, Councillor Yam, Councillor Robinson request City Manager have proper department establish the City Youth Commission in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8E. Any comments? No comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We've taken 12.13 already. We now go to 12.14. Councillor Nguyen, Councillor Yam request City Manager report on the acquisition and implementation of interpretation services for City Council meetings and other public city meetings. No comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. 12.15, Councillor Nguyen, Councillor Janess request City Manager report on providing an overview of various programs and services that are designed to assist the city's chronically unhoused population and those in danger of becoming unhoused along with the metrics by which the city determines the effectiveness of these programs. No comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carry. 12.16, Councilor Janess, Councilor Robinson. Request city manager have law department investigate drafting an ordinance prohibiting the sale of gasoline at city filling stations to unlicensed and or unregistered vehicles unless they are on a trailer. No comments. All in favor say aye. Councilor Robinson.
That motion there came by way of a conversation with LPD at a neighborhood group, so it's kind of a tool that they were hinting at would be helpful.
Thank you, Councilor. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carry. 12.17, Councilor Leahy requests city manager have proper department inspect and upgrade crosswalks on Rogers Street in the vicinity of Rogers Hall. Second by Councilor Gishia. No comment. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carry. 12.18, Councilor Leahy requests city manager provide an update regarding firehouse water heater repairs. Second by Councilor Drinkwater. No comment. On
just quickly,
Councilor Leahy.
again, through you to the manager, we've done a pretty good job with this. There's still a couple of firehouses that don't have the installation, and there's a couple of firehouses that have issues. So, I mean, this is really a long time coming, and it's not too much to ask that the men and women have a hot shower when they get back from fighting a fire. So if this could be addressed and immediately taken care of, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. We're reaching 10. I think we have 30 seconds before it hit 10:01, so we're still in the legal limit. That motion is passed. Motion 12.19. My motion requests city manager have the law department draft a resolution recognizing African Unity Day in Lowell on May 25th. Second by Councilor Robinson. No comment. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. And we are done. Any announcements? Councilor Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like to thank Deputy Assistant Manager Christine McCall tonight. Put in the big chair. You were terrific. Very well done, and a good job by you and all up there. The management needs some work, but he has a good team around him. So between Mark Byrne and Connor and the solicitor, it's going well. So thank you for your service tonight.
Motion to adjourn by Councilor Gishia, second Councilor Drinkwater. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Have a great night.